You're locked into the RC3 podcast, broadcasting live from the borderlands. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, South Texas ain't quiet no more. Like, sub, share the damn thing. Let's ride.
What's up, Texas? RGV. It's Saturday night. Welcome to RC3 podcast, coming at you live from the borderlands in the deepest part of South Texas. I am your host, RC3. We're going to have a banger of an episode with a special guest who I will introduce shortly. But first, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Follow me and the podcast on Facebook, and find us on TikTok at RC3 Podcast. You will not be disappointed. One last thing. I keep getting asked by fans of the show to get on Spotify and Apple iTunes, and I have heard your cry. Audio versions will soon be on every major platform, including Apple and Spotify, so stay tuned for that. And lastly, and most important, share this podcast with your tío and tía. The ones who say that they do their own research, but you always just catch them out on Fox News. You know who you are. Now, before I introduce our special guest for tonight, I got to get something off my chest. Years ago, I worked as a part-time bartender during college, and I remember this interaction, these two dudes were having. There was two guys sitting at the bar, still in their uniforms from a long day's work, and the animated conversation went something like this. One of the workers says to the other man, "Yeah, I'm so fed up with Larry. Always pissing and moaning about something, always screwing around, playing grab ass. Never shuts the hell up. I can tell the boss wants to get rid of him. I say screw the union, screw the contract, and screw protections for guys like Larry. We should just give the boss the authority to fire him tomorrow. Anyway, the boss is a man's man. He'll do the right thing. It's guys like Larry that are killing the company." This whole time, the friend's nodding along, right? Yeah, fuck Larry. He doesn't deserve the union watching his back. We need to tear up the contract and get rid of him. It's for the good of the whole office. Now, another bartender, an older, sophisticated fella who I worked with, was listening to the whole convo. He sets down a glass of beer and leans in towards the two gentlemen. Bartender says to them, "All right, but let me ask you guys. You tear down the union, you tear down the contract just to get Larry out. What happens if one day it's you in the boss's crosshairs? What protections are you going to appeal to? Or what are you going to do when a new craven-ass manager decides that you're a lazy, worthless piece of shit, huh? What then? With no contract, no protection standing, what's going to stop them from tossing you out on your ass?" After that, the men stayed looking at each other as if the thought hadn't even crossed their minds, so blinded by the current moment and their hatred for their fellow workers that they couldn't even be bothered to think 5-10 years down the line. And that brings me to our current moment. You ever notice how the "don't tread on me" patriotic crowd got real quiet when the government actually started treading? You ever wonder why? That yellow snake flag, it's supposed to be about freedom, resistance, liberty, telling King George to go fuck himself. Now it's basically cosplay for divorced TAP red flag high achievers who buy their tactical vest at Bass Pro Shops and thought that not wearing a mask at Walmart during COVID was as revolutionary as the Boston Tea Party. And the tragedy of it all is we could actually use you right now. Yeah, you, the guy who was caught on video beating up that poor Walmart greeter for encroaching on your liberty because he asked you to wear a mask. We could kind of use you right now, tough guy. Shit's actually going down. On August 16th, 2025, in San Bernardino County, masked federal immigration agents boxed in a family's vehicle during a targeted stop. They're caught on video refusing to identify themselves. They're armed and driving around in unmarked vehicles, fully dressed in tactical gear and armed to the gills. It looks like a scene out of third world countries where drug cartels set up checkpoints. Now, after refusing to identify themselves, the driver and his family refused to cooperate. Then these masked agents begin the aggression. They break both driver and passenger side windows. So the driver does what anybody living in a free country would do: drive off, because this isn't normal. The masked cartel wannabes begin firing at the family in the car, 3 rounds while the vehicle sped off. DHS says the driver struck 2 agents and no one was hit by gunfire. But it was later confirmed by subsequent video that the claim by DHS was fake news. After the family called local police, they said the agents had refused to identify themselves or even show badges. Later, federal agents returned to their house without a warrant, but were kept outside as neighbors gathered, turning the incident into a flashpoint over masked, often unidentifiable enforcement tactics. Just to be clear, with everybody that's watching, it is your birthright as an American, if this happens to you, to absolutely demand identification. If an armed masked thug in tactical gear jumps out of an unmarked vehicle, tries to stop you, and thinks he is above our Constitution and doesn't feel like he can't be bothered to identify himself, you have every right as an American to tell him to go absolutely fuck himself. You don't know who he is. What if he is a drug dealer? What if you feel like the interaction is putting your family at risk? What would you do as a Texan? I know what you're thinking. I would do that too, and I wouldn't hesitate. If our government doing bullshit like this doesn't fill you with patriotic fervor to fight back, then you were never a patriot. That yellow Gadsden flag was just a branding exercise for social media and never meant shit to you. And if this were 1776, we're all finding out who the King George ass kissers around us would have been. But these are all illegals, RC3, criminals, and the scourge of American society. And if they got to rough up a few Americans, then it's a small price to pay. If they got to peel back a few freedoms, a little due process here, a FEMA camp there, if it requires military boots in every American city, well, you can't make an omelet if you don't break some eggs. That's what I voted for. Just last week, Trump sent federal troops to Washington, D.C. to help fight crime. Soon after, red state governors started sending their own states' National Guard to Washington, D.C. also. The kicker? Many of those red states have cities with higher crime rates than the ones they were supposedly trying to stop in D.C. Now, if you're asking yourself, why aren't they more concerned with crime in their own states? Well, that's a really good question, and you may be onto something. As if that weren't strange enough, Pete Hegseth just gave the green light for the military currently on American streets to be armed and ready. Alex Jones, the right-wing conspiracy theorist, became famous with his ass-on-fire rants about how Obama was creating FEMA death camps to enslave people. That never happened under Obama, but it's actually and literally happening now under his boy Trump. Literal FEMA camps. And where's Alex Jones at? I think he likes this boss. Right-winger and chronic crybaby Glenn Beck used to talk about military boots on the streets and tyranny when the black guy was president. Well, that literally is happening right now. And has anybody seen Glenn? Bueller? You think maybe it's because Glenn likes this boss? Where are my 1776ers at? An AI company named Palantir literally just got the government contract to collect data and track every single American with AI. Yep, you guessed it. The same kind of dystopian shit right-wingers like Glenn Beck and Alex Jones were always screaming about. And have you heard any pushback from these guys? What about your loud-ass friends on social media? Anybody know a patriot? The one who has a photo of himself shooting a rifle in the gun range as his profile pic, drives around in a lifted truck with the American flag on one side and the "Don't Tread on Me" flag on the other side? Anyone seen that guy? Anyone? You know, sadly, it's the opposite. While all the dystopian shit is going down, the conservative right wing is distracted by being outraged about Cracker Barrel changing their logo, like hypnotized hamsters on a wheel. You know, I suspect that they may be like the boss. He's a man's man, and nobody likes these Larrys anyway. The illegals, the homegrown criminals, the liberals, the communists, the Hamas sympathizers. So what if we get rid of the contract? Do away with the union? It's for the greater good. But just remember, conservatives, this boss ain't always going to be around. And what protections are you going to appeal to for protection, having cut them all down to go after the people you've been brainwashed to hate? Here in studio to respond to my liberal propaganda is a South Texas voice who actually shows up, knocking on doors, listening, and fighting on social media. We ourselves have had a few heated clashes, and he's running for Texas 34. And as I've said before, we won't agree on everything. And that's what'll make this fun. And that's kind of what this is all about. But I want to make it known I respect any conservative that has the balls to get in here and talk to me. I've put out an invitation to every candidate that is running, conservative and liberal, and only a few have responded. So again, respect to my next guest for sitting on the hot seat. And so everybody, please welcome Gregory Kunkle to the RC3 podcast.
Hey, how you doing, sir? Hey,
thanks for coming in, man.
Hey, thank you for having me.
All right. Before you respond to everything I said, just, introduce yourself to the audience and let them know what you're all about.
Yeah. Hey, y'all, Gregory Scott Kunkle Jr. here, Kunkle for Congress. I am running for U.S. Congress in Texas' 34th Congressional District. After the redistricting that just passed the Texas House, soon to be the Senate, and signed by Governor Abbott, we're going to be looking at Cameron County, Willacy County, Claiborne County, Kennedy County, Nueces County coming up. So I'm a constitutional conservative, born and raised in the RGV, born in Weslaco right here. Feels good. I haven't been to Weslaco in years. Almost, honestly, moved away when I was about 5 years old. Raised in Harlingen, attended Texas A&M University, and love the RGV. I'll tell you right now, my primary issues that I think anyone can agree upon is I am fighting for federal funding for drainage for South Texas, water that we need for our farmers and businesses, municipalities, and making sure that our children get to grow up and live in a place where our parents are the number one influence for them going forward. So with that, it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm definitely not going to agree with everything you said on that rant, but I'll be more than happy to respond.
All right, take this opportunity to respond.
Oh man, can you please write it out for me again? Because there was a lot of information going on there, and I understand we do not live in a perfect system by any means. Even the judicial system. Do I believe that someone has been executed for a crime that they did not commit? It is a fact. It is well known. There are even projects to utilize DNA to try to get people that were accused of rape or murder, where new evidence and the technology was not there to be able to release them and are freed. And so, you know what? I know that we do not have a perfect system, but we are in pursuit of a perfect system of justice. Down honestly to the Walmart parking lot too, with federal officers, municipal officers. I understand that there can be mistakes made, and I hope that whatever happened in that situation where someone was held at gunpoint, I would advise honestly, cooperate with law enforcement. Maybe they were undercover. You didn't think they were law enforcement. I totally understand that. Just like you, I probably would have had a sidearm right there, and maybe things would have got a little hairy. But honestly, if they are badged, if they are showing the correct insignia, I would cooperate with law enforcement and try to prevent any escalation of the situation.
The issue is they're not, and the issue is that's not normal. So what are we as Americans supposed to do? Let's say you get pulled over, right? This unmarked vehicles following you around, masked agents come out, or we think are agents, right? You ask them, like every citizen should, who are you? Can I see some identification? What is your name, your badge number? And they basically tell you to go fuck yourself. What is the next step? What are the available options for an American citizen? We live in the state of Texas. Almost everybody I know is armed, right? You can see where, number one, how the president is putting his own agents in scary situations.
Definitely.
And you can also see where all it's going to take is one bad event to spark a national crisis. So, what do you do in that situation? Like, let's say you do, win the district and you go to Washington, and you show up and you see,
and I have dark skin, and they're going to be like, "What are you doing here?"
You blend right in, man. And they tell you, you go in there and you see these, it's militarized everywhere, and then like, how do you feel about the current state of events? Before you answer that question, though, I want you to get into it. But you did mention that we are in this process of perfecting the union, right? Donald Trump is president. How do you grade him on that scale of perfecting the union? Class grade A through F through A.
I'm gonna give him a straight up A+, man. You already know that. Honestly, I'm gonna give him an A. You know what? Even A+.
Come on, A+. You're gonna have to explain that a little bit.
Sure. Okay.
So let's start on the economy.
Sure thing.
And we'll get to immigration, and then you can.
Of course.
All right. So tell me how has he earned an A+ on the economy?
Well, I think what we're seeing now is the retroactive actions necessary to bring back a historical manufacturing economy and building that once was America. America has a significant past, similar to the Magic Valley that we are in today. The Rio Grande Valley, a lot of kids today, and I'm sure you know this already, they don't know the history of the Rio Grande Valley. They don't know the agriculture, the economy, what started it. And it's amazing to me. And one of my favorite pages to follow on social media is called Magic Valley Chronicles, showcasing downtown McAllen in 1915, Brownsville, Texas. One of my favorite pictures, Harlingen, Texas, 1913. There's like 4 houses on the main downtown square. And that's why I like to tell everyone, like, none of y'all are from here. Unless your family lived in those 4 houses 100 years ago, from a different place. And there are some, there's some tribal people, Indian cultures and lands that were here. But as far as the cities are concerned, everyone came down from an agricultural perspective. And so people are lost on the history of what our home in the Rio Grande Valley actually are, probably because they're looking at their phones. Well, now look at it from a national context. One of the things that has happened in our economy is that we have traded entire cultures of manufacturing, business, amazing cities like Pittsburgh, New England, New York, Connecticut, powerhouse steel mills, manufacturing centers, the Model T and Ford. We see it in our textbooks at school, but we have lost the culture and the growth that has actually developed. Now, what actually happened is that here about the 1990s, and hey, I'll even blame a Republican, George Bush, doing world global economies, NAFTA, free trade. What we traded out was for flat screens. Yeah, you already know, 10 years ago, when you used to buy that 65-inch flat screen, it was like $3,000. Now you go to Walmart, $300, and it's on your wall with Roku and everything connected to the internet. But back in the day, some of these products and things were made in the Northeast, were made in the United States of America. And they had cost more money because they were providing a livelihood for those communities. People were working. Entire cities that are now ghost towns, like Detroit, for instance, depended and grew and spurred because of the manufacturing of the jobs in the economy that are available. Now, fast forward, we love the cheap prices. We love getting these $300 big screens that we can put on our wall. But the question now is that, was that at a loss of the culture and identity that the United States once had in business and manufacturing? And the entire, you see the pictures of the mom, dad, the little boy and little girl sitting down to a turkey dinner in black and white in the 1950s. It was happening in South Texas too. Weslaco, Texas, bro. I grew up here. Hagar factories. They were making blue jeans for Levi's. Fruit of the Loom in Harlingen. Now it's all across the border in the Macanitas.
San Benito.
Yeah, San Benito's. That's right. And so I think the question begs that from an economical perspective, Donald Trump is trying to reverse that. He grew up in it too, and bring us back to a place where America was dominant in these factors, in some of this manufacturing. Are we going to be sewing blue jeans here in Weslaco, Texas ever again? I don't think so. But that doesn't mean we can't bring new industries. For instance, SpaceX. I think SpaceX, Brownsville, Texas, of all places, is going to become a manufacturing powerhouse of future aerospace, where another company might come in, and you'll have companies producing steel components and other things. So in my opinion, to finalize is that we have traded cheap prices for entire communities that have now been destroyed and dilapidated across the United States, including in South Texas. I love Weslaco, Mercedes, Harlingen, San Benito, all railroad towns. The historic railroad districts, the history going. I never realized even till I left, like how this actually happened and how economy, railroad, business brought these places to life. And I do think with the tariffs, with what Donald Trump is trying to do in bringing back Apple is going to make every single glass screen that will be on the new iPhones coming up. The glass is coming from Kentucky here in the United States, trying to impose tariffs and essentially consequences for these companies that have outsourced will bring back some manufacturing. And I think that's the goal.
Let me push back on that a little bit, because like so much of everything of what Trump says, I think I agree with a lot of it. So much of what you said right now, I agree with. So if I were to score Donald Trump on being able to pinpoint problems, I'd probably give him an A+ too, right? The solutions is where he gets a little squirrely. Tariff. Let's talk about tariffs, right? We just found out this month that we're actually losing manufacturing jobs. In Trump's first term, we actually lost a net manufacturing jobs. There was a lot of showmanship around factories opening up. There's a particular factory that comes to mind out of Wisconsin, and it's not coming to me right now, but there was at least a couple that, when the deal happened, Donald Trump got on camera, and he talked about all of these jobs coming back. Carrier, there you go, Carrier plant, and it turns out that they got the government subsidies, they got the tax subsidies, and they ended up closing shop anyway, right? And there wasn't any pushback from the president, right? He signed NAFTA. Now, what I want to ask people who may be watching who may not know what tariffs are, there's a lot of people that I'm finding out that don't know what tariffs are.
Right.
They don't know exactly who pays the tariffs, right? So like when Donald Trump gets on camera and he says, $250 billion came in, and in tariffs, and that's going to go to the deficit, right? Well, came in from where? It didn't come in from anywhere. It's being paid by Americans, by manufacturers, by consumers when they pass out. And here's another question that I would have for the administration. If the goal is to bring back manufacturing, which is a noble goal, then why are you making deals? Tariffs should just remain across the board so that we incentivize people to start building here at home. If the goal is to bring manufacturing, then you shouldn't be making deals, right? 90 deals in 90 days. Why? Why are we making these deals if the point is to bring back manufacturing? To be honest with you, Gregory, I don't think that's the goal. He just used tariffs in Brazil to basically get involved in one of their domestic matters. He didn't like the way Brazil's courts were treating Bolsonaro. So he used tariffs as a way to punish them. So now Americans are going to pay more for coffee because he doesn't like the way the Brazilian justice system is treating a pal of his. Now, you can't make a case to me that this is a serious attempt to bring back manufacturing. Now, in 6-7 months from now, I could be wrong, but to give him an A+, especially on this issue right now when we're, hemorrhaging manufacturing still, I think you're being too nice.
Let me add to that just a little bit. So a couple of key examples: S&P 500, NASDAQ, Dow Industrial Index, all of them hitting record highs consistently over the last month. I mean, since his presidency, all-time highs. I think that's an A+. You're hitting records. People predicted a recession just a few months ago or two. Okay, we're going to have a recession. We should be in World War III right now, RC3, and I'm hanging out with you drinking a Texas special.
But who said we were going to be in World War III?
A lot of people when he was coming back talking about the Iranian bombing that we did over there. And I digress. I didn't mean to go there. I was just saying that there's been a lot of doom and gloom with respect to the decisions that Trump has made. But now going back to the tariff, a key example, and here's one that I would like to see here locally: shrimpers in Port Isabel, Texas. It's no secret that the shrimp and the food, I love shrimp. I eat a lot of shrimp. I bet you do too. And yeah, definitely. And you know what? The shrimp that comes from around the world is not subject to the same standards or quality that is even. They were warning about radioactive shrimp from the state of Texas this week. And,
I heard about that.
And I think that mechanisms like tariffs, yes, the cost is passed down. And I'm not saying that tariffs on large macroeconomic tariffs are not put there to make the prices go down. They're put there, and I think liberals and Democrats should like this term, to make equity across the market between American and foreign producers of any given product. And so for that matter, the shrimpers, Port Isabel, in my district, constituents live down the road from me. I want to save the shrimping and the shrimping business, because just like these TV manufacturers or car manufacturers in Detroit, once they're gone, the community is gone with it as well.
But just I mean, interrupt you. You mentioned equity, but who's going to want equity in the market paying more for a product that they were previously paying, $10 for? You get a coffee pot or a coffee maker for $15 from Walmart. And if the argument is, well, listen, now you're gonna have to pay $20 or $25, but there's gonna be equity. I mean, you think people are gonna take that deal?
I think they're gonna have to, because that is the equity we're building in communities in the United States. A coffee maker in the United States, that money is staying here. You're buying a Walmart coffee maker that's coming from China, that is shipping the money that hard-earned money, the workers of South Texas.
Should that be their choice?
It should be their choice.
As an American, shouldn't you have the right to access markets from all over the world?
No, I won't agree with that, because as the president, you have the right, as elected by the people and the representation and the votes, to decide what markets we have access to. Right now, we have foreign embargoes against Russia. You can't buy Russian vodka. You can't do business with Russia. Iran, China. You can't even. I work for the state of Texas. You can't use DJI products. The state of Texas did that one. So the reality is, yes, you can say on the surface that we should be able to do whatever we want. But when we have elected leaders that get to decide the macroeconomic policy, just like Democrats do when they're in president, just like Republicans do when they're here. Again, NAFTA was done by a Republican and signed. Then they get to decide the markets and the market perspective and policy that we go forward with. To quote Barack Obama, elections have consequences.
Elections do have consequences, and and I make this case to a lot of people is that we're living through those very consequences right now. There's a lot of very unhappy people.
50-50. Yes, sir.
I wouldn't say it's 50-50. Right? Most polling, if you take an aggregate of polling, I don't know how you feel about polls, but you're looking at very, low 40s. Some polls have them at 37, 38.
But at least he's awake.
He's not doing too hot. Well, I'd rather him not be. I don't know how Sleepy Joe did it, but I don't think Joe Biden did that bad of a job.
I don't think he did any job.
Well, if you look at the economy, and I don't even want to go into
sure
delegating with how Joe Biden did in his career or in his presidency or his handlers.
Right, exactly.
But let's put Joe Biden aside. I think his handlers did all right. We came in his presidency came in, and keep in mind, I know conservatives like to talk about the Democrats were the for shutdowns and blah blah blah. The government was the economy was shut down under Donald Trump. It was only when Joe Biden came in that the economy opened up, and don't you forget it. That was Sleepy Joe or his handlers, whoever. Right, but the economy opened up under Joe Biden, and so it was shut down from March of 2020. Am I getting my timeline right? March of 2020.
I can't remember. Too long ago politically.
till about February of 2021. It opened up under Joe Biden, but somehow Democrats are just so pathetic at marketing themselves and branding themselves. Shutdowns are a Democrat problem. When it happened under Trump, okay, so that happened. The market crashes in September of 2020. You can look that up. Market crashes. So Joe Biden comes in with a shitty economy. So he has to deal with all the bullshit that the Republicans always leave Democrat presidents. And look, here's a fun fact. I used to be Republican. I voted for George Bush the second time. That's when I became old enough to vote. I voted for John McCain over Obama the first time. I voted for Mitt Romney. I thought Obama was the Antichrist. And I voted for Donald.
Elon Musk now, haven't you?
That's
what everyone says.
The spirit's been passed on. I voted for Donald Trump against Hillary Clinton. I didn't vote in 2020, and then I voted for Harris in 2024. So, I'm not trying to feed you some kind of partisan line.
For sure.
Right? It's just that when I see the economies that Republicans hand over to Democrat presidents, George Bush, the Great Recession of 2007, Obama had to clean that shit up. Right, Joe Biden had to clean up Trump's mess from COVID, right? And not all of that was Trump's fault, right? I mean, you got to be fair also in the way you assess these things, right?
Sure.
Not all of that was Trump's fault, but if you're going to blame Biden for inflation, and you're going to cite as the reason government spending, and then you conveniently forget that Donald Trump, raised the deficit more than any president before him, it's like, what are you trying to tell me? Like,
let me answer that a little bit, because you know what? I would not sit here and say I agree with Donald Trump on every single thing. That is not true. I will call him out where I think he needs to be called out. The deficit is definitely one of them. There is no way that raising this deficit, and I wish Republicans and the GOP would be more strong.
Would you have voted for the big beautiful bill?
Yes. You know why? Because the constituents that I would represent would want me to. When you are a representative in Congress, you are not voting for yourself. You were voting for what the people that put you in office are expecting. And I would think,
but you also have to lead.
But let me just stipulate with you're right about that. But from the Border Patrol funding that's coming down here, from the economic impacts to farmers and agriculture, between those two facts alone, not even talking about the other things that were done in it, it increased the deficit, but the people down here would have wanted that vote. Did I agree with every single thing? No, sir. But coming back to Donald Trump specifically and not agreeing with everything, there's just no way that I expect Trump to be perfect. And I don't think anyone should. And I think that's the measure that people hold him to, is that every decision, every single thing should be chef's kiss. But that's not the reality of politics. We have to understand. Now, going back to the economy and presidents, I will also call out Republicans again. Hey, I'm an equal opportunity offender. Like Republicans, Democrats, Green Party, Socialists, Communists, I'll call you all out. Now, going back, and trust me, there are Republicans in Hidalgo. They don't like me right now. Now, going back to Donald Trump, his initial House of Representatives when he became president during that first term was McCarthy, McCain, and a bunch of people that didn't like him. So he was not able to get some of these things that we're seeing now done because it was his own party fighting him. And so I would attribute also, the legislation that was not passed, even some of the inflation that we did see, is because the Republicans in Congress hated Donald Trump. He had to get through that. And then COVID hit. And I mean, in all did, it's like we're watching what the first term should have been right now when people actually support it.
There's two ways to view that, though. His own party being against him can also mean that even his own party thought he was terrible. Or presumably the way you view it, right? It's because he's so great that the swamp or whatever is out to get him. But there's one quibble that. Quibble. Who even uses that word? Right? There's one.
That's a high-end vocabulary,
quibble.
bro.
There's one quibble that
I can't spell it. So. Wordle
that I got. I don't think, seeing that over 65% of Valley people are on Medicaid, that they would have wanted you to vote for that bill, the big beautiful bill. I think it's very, very hard for Republicans to make the case. It's the most unpopular bill. The first most unpopular bill was the first tax cut bill that Donald Trump passed in 2017. And now this is one of the second most unpopular bill in our country's history. So what do you mean when you say that people would have wanted you to vote for that? People would have lost their Medicaid. A lot of people would have lost their SNAP benefits. I mean, that's literally in the bill. Like when we say that, sometimes we elect people to lead. It's not to rubber stamp everything that the president.
I agree
that the president does and says. Like in a bit, we'll talk about immigration. And I didn't know you were born in Westerville.
Yes, sir. Born, not raised.
Never. And so you've seen the way like immigration raids and the way immigration has affected our community, right? And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But you said it earlier. Elections have consequences, right? We tend to see things as like team red versus team blue, right? And as long as my team is winning, and as long as my team has like the perception of like we're owning the other side, especially in the era of Trump, like we're owning the liberals and we're making them, then that's taken the place of actually doing good for the people. Like the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Lauren Boeberts. This isn't really a hot seat because there's a lot that you and I agree on, right? Like it's not a hot seat. We may disagree on how we solve these problems,
sure,
right? But we see a lot of the same problems, right? It's a hot seat only for grifters. It's a hot seat only for people who are just completely full of shit. You're not one of them. I haven't gotten that impression from talking to you.
Appreciate that.
But there's a lot of these people out there.
I agree. Both sides for sure.
I'm definitely on both sides, right? And so, but it has increased exponentially under the Trump era, man. Like you gotta admit that. The grift is just unbelievable. The guy has merchandise in the White House.
He's a businessman.
Come on, you see, and he's a businessman, right? That's something else that gets used to excuse the most fucking abhorrent behavior. He's a businessman. So what?
Well,
he's also the president.
Let me add to that a little bit. So, I mean, I remember voting the first primary for Donald Trump in 2016. I was debating between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump. And you know, I like Ted Cruz, and this is Ted Cruz.
Cancun
This
Cruz.
is pre-Cancun Cruz. Say that 3 times fast. Pre-Cancun Cruz. And for real, and like, you know, Ted Cruz, they were talking about him going to the Supreme Court and everything. And so I was like, man, Ted Cruz.
You want another beer?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Like Ted Cruz, a good guy. Who do I want, him or Trump? And I sat there in the voting booth, you know, really not with my mind made up, knowing them both very well. And I told myself, Donald Trump has no history in politics. Ted Cruz is getting a little politician these days. And thank you, sir. And I'm gonna vote for Donald Trump because he's a businessman. And so, yes, I know in office that may not be a title or an accolade. We want PhDs or community organizers or senators. Years, but the fact that Trump did not have that political experience, I think, paid dividends, and he's willing to make decisions for the bottom line of the voters and the people, applying that business sense. Now, again, we don't always agree on the best mechanism to do that, but I do believe he is making his decisions. I've heard it. I think you have too. He will listen to liberal opinions. He'll have both sides of the story. He makes the final decision at the end of the day. And going back to some of these, let's call them politicos of the North, but like Lauren Boebert and all these crazy people, they're subject to their voters.
Out.
And if they're not in my district. if their people are voting for him with that kind of character and who they are, then they're doing their job, because that is who is being voted upon. And that's why we have these elections every 2 years. And you need to have a representative that represents the people, that people will trust, and that if you're being successful, you're going to keep coming back. So for them, if they are representing their people correctly and it is working, then I think they should keep doing that. Just like I want to represent South Texas, the coastal community. I hope I'm driving a 5.0 Fox body up there and casting a live shrimp in the ponds of Washington, D.C. Like, that's what I want to be doing up there, because that's who I am. That's what I know. I probably can't do any dove hunting on the streets of D.C., but you never know.
I don't know, man. We're getting pretty wild west up in there, man.
Not with all the military right now.
We already have the snake oil salesman.
Yeah, the what? Snake oil,
the snake oil salesman.
Hey, I still think he's doing a great job, for real.
You know, so there's something that you said that kind of it caught my attention, right? I want to go back to this whole like he's a businessman thing, because I think there's one thing that's been lost in the Trump era, right? And that's the idea that he's a good businessman has taken precedence over character, right? And I still believe that character is destiny. You could have somebody who is a good businessman, and even with Trump, that's debatable. But you could have somebody that is a good businessman, but a complete piece of shit. Entire empires have fallen on characters of kings. Entire empires have fallen based on the characters of kings. But here we're talking about, yeah, he might not be the best guy. He may not be, you know, I didn't vote for a preacher, or I didn't vote for a pastor, but he's a good businessman.
I had 2 pastors running against me right now.
But, you know, I like his policies. Policies don't mean shit if the guy pushing the policies is of terrible character. Character determines not only policy, but the direction of the country. And like I said, and I'm going to say it one more time for the third time, entire empires have fallen based on the characters of kings. It used to be, I mean, just 20 years ago, in our time range, Bill Clinton got impeached over a blowjob. And on Bill Clinton were the Christian conservatives. And they were saying things like, well, it's because we need a moral leader. Well, some of us still agree with that. Why did you change? Why did the Republican Party change? What happened? Was it the quest for power? Of course it is, right? But what changed over the course of 20 years that you say, well, you know what? Actually, I'm not looking for a pastor. I want a businessman. And now they're just justifying and making excuses for the worst possible behavior. I mean, I thought in 2016, and I still voted for him because, I mean, I wasn't one of these, choir boys. I still voted for Trump after the Grab the Pussy tape came out. But I thought he was done. But Mike Pence decided to become his vice president. The same Mike Pence that was on radio in the 90s that said that Bill Clinton needed to be impeached because America needed a moral leader. So my question is, what happened? I don't feel like I've changed, but the Republican Party has changed.
Let me answer that for you. I certainly remember the Bill Clinton debacle and impeachments and everything, blue dress, yasta. And fast forward now, though,
blue and white dress.
Blue and white. I'm sorry, my memory is not that detailed. But what I think and what I told myself, because I have posed this exact same question to myself, the real test of the character is not necessarily who the character of the man is. Because first of all, we are not an empire. We are not a king. Donald Trump will leave the presidency at some point. Now, he may get another term, but we won't go there right now. But he will leave because we are not an empire. He is not a king. I think the founding fathers were smart in creating that, in giving only a certain amount of time. Now, we did change the amount of times you could be elected, but that period of time set by George Washington was a forethought in preventing someone with power from possibly, crumbling an entire nation. Now, that being said, I have always told myself, I'm going to judge Donald Trump because, of course, I saw that tape. I know the history. I'm going to judge Donald Trump by what he does in office. And through one term, and to my knowledge, and if there was any nefarious action going on, if there was something that could leak or be pinpointed against him from a moral character perspective, it would be out there. It is
out there, but the problem is, his supporters don't care.
No. I mean, within his character of being in office, comparing it to Bill Clinton, just like the same situation that happened there. And so what I'm saying is that while he's been in office, as far as I'm concerned, his character has been good. Now, also, he dropped a couple F-bombs. I'll hold him accountable for that.
That's the least of my worries, is the F-bombs. I mean, I didn't want to go here, but Jeffrey Epstein. Do you think he's completely innocent of that situation?
Innocent as far as like being listed in the files, or innocent as far as being part of action?
Well, I mean, like
things he has done in the past.
Listed in the files. I mean, there's a lot of people that are going to be in the files, right?
Like
there's no list, right? Of like 1 through 25, right?
Yeah,
like these are the guys that did dirty. Like there's just data. Right. There's just records. There's video. There's tapes. There's all that shit that the FBI said they found at the time.
Right.
At Jeffrey Epstein. What I'm asking you is, clearly Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were close friends.
I wouldn't agree with that.
Donald Trump said it himself.
I mean, I've never seen that video. I mean, I saw Donald Trump take pictures with Muhammad Ali. I'm not going to sit here and say he was close friends.
Okay, maybe one picture.
I think a few. He was a boxing fan.
There are over dozens of pictures of Donald Trump and Melania, both with not only Jeffrey Epstein, but with Ghislaine Maxwell at Mar-a-Lago, at different events. Donald Trump in an interview said, "Listen, that Jeffrey Epstein guy, he's a great guy. He loves to party and he likes girls a little bit young, right? But he's a great guy." There's got to be a coming to terms with the reality of the guy that's president in office today.
Sure.
There's what we want him to be, or what we've everything that we've portrayed and everything that we've projected onto Trump, and then there's the reality of who he is, right? This is a guy, again, since we're talking about character, this is a guy that's bragged about walking into underage girls' dressing rooms on Howard Stern. I don't know if you've seen that video.
I have heard him say, walking into rooms. I've never heard him say underage
girls. I wouldn't be saying it here if I didn't know this for a fact.
I think that's where words get twisted a little bit. That may be an interpretation, but I've heard the same tape.
But why do conservatives do that? Like with Trump, it's always so nuanced, right? Like every little detail,
that would be illegal. It would be illegal.
But when you're a billionaire, a lot of things aren't illegal, and that's that. I mean, that's a big problem with our system. Right,
I would agree with that for sure.
Okay. So here's another one that you can look up after this. He's also on video in an interview where he's being asked, about his daughter Tiffany, a baby, and it's him, and I forget who his wife was at the time, Marla maybe. And they ask him, who does she more, who does she more look like, right? And just out of nowhere, like a weirdo, he says, "Well, she has, her mom's legs, but time will tell if she has this part." Imagine.
Never seen that. I keep up with Trump pretty often, especially the haters.
Okay, well then again, like, you're in an information bubble that's not showing you that. There's that video. There's another one where he's with Ivanka, and one of the Joe Behar asks Trump. This is before he ran for president. He asked Trump, what do you and Ivanka have in common? Out of the blue, from nowhere, for no particular reason, he says, "Well, I want to say sex, but that'd be kind of weird." And Ivanka's kind of like, who says that shit about their own daughters? But you see, with Trump, it gets dismissed. He's a businessman. I didn't vote for a preacher. I like his policies. When the truth is that we got to come to terms with the man that's currently running the country. He has a terrible character. He's not a good person. And because of those key issues, he's going to drive our country into the ground. And which is going to lead me to the next thing that we're going to talk about, is the militarization of the armed forces on American streets. Right.
So before that, let me push back a little bit, because first of all, I think, and a lot of Democrats and liberals want to do this. They want to speak of the Trump in the past, and sure, there may be videos, there may be quotes or quips that people want to quibble with, but the question is, who is the man in the office now? And just like you said, if you expect him to crumble our nation, for the empire to fall, that would mean that his character today would need to be bad for that to occur. And hey, I'm going to go biblical on you with this. King David made mistakes, but he was a man after God's own heart. But he even admitted himself, he was caught. He made mistakes while he was even king. I would maintain that Donald Trump, from a character perspective, has been nothing but in good standing throughout his presidency. And if there was even the slightest hint of anything that could be attributed factually or characterly towards him, it would be out all over the media 24/7.
It is out. It has been out.
What is it?
But it doesn't matter to you guys. That's the problem, is that all of this stuff is already out. A lot of this stuff would have been disqualifying for any Democratic president. But because it's Trump, for you guys just forgive everything.
During his presidency, name it.
I mean, just before the first presidency started, Stormy Daniels.
During the presidency.
Well, that was during the campaign.
During the presidency.
Taking classified.
Taking
classified documents?
I mean,
January the 6th. I can go on and on.
That is not a character. Those are legal issues, not a character.
That is not a character issue?
No, not a person.
Sitting for 4 hours watching the Capitol get stormed by your and not doing anything about it. That looks like crime to me.
The FBI agents in there could have stopped it as well.
Well, right, but you're the sitting president. You're sitting there watching for 4 hours.
As a matter of fact,
and I'll tell you what, crime is down in D.C. It's been down like 30% over the last 2 years.
We'll go over those numbers in a second.
And now he's sending the troops because there's too much crime. But when it came down to when our country was actually having to transfer power when it mattered, he sat on his ass for 4 hours.
So here's the deal, though. And you know this, RC. You're a very smart man. I appreciate the debate. But you already know that the president of the United States, by separation of powers, has no authority inside of the Capitol. As a matter of fact, the president of the United States could not send Secret Service or his own police into the Capitol. That is the people's house. It is controlled by the Speaker of the House. Nancy Pelosi is the one that has to make the call. So while I agree that he had people there, he had a rally inside of the Capitol building, Trump has no authority by the Constitution of the United States.
But now you're playing word games.
I'm not because constitutional word games.
But nobody is saying that he needed to send troops inside the Capitol. Send troops around the perimeter like there is now.
The Capitol grounds extend beyond the building itself, and that is Nancy Pelosi.
He's literally has troops out there now.
Yes, he does, and I agree with that. Honestly, you ever been to DC?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's scary to walk around there sometimes.
I walked around there with no problem.
Yeah, well, when you walk around with 4 kids at night going from place to place, there's a lot of problems. And going back to the rates of crime has been down 30%. Right now, the mayor or the chief of police is under investigation for manipulating numbers on that. But I will tell you what 30% means, because I made this point to someone else who raised the question online. 30% dropping in murders means that instead of 186 homicides, there was 125. It means instead of 473 rapes, there was about 382. And so when you see a 30% drop in crime rates, I mean, you tell me which one's better, 383 rapes or 445. And that's why that number means nothing to me, because the fact that it's occurring at all. When I was in DC, I spent a week there for work. When I was in DC, a guy got shot point blank in the public library, which my kids and wife like to go to. There was homeless people all over the streets. And the fact of the matter is that DC is not a city or a municipality like we live here. A federal district,
which means
when people apply the same standards or legality in how it's enforced or safety is occurred, it is not one and the same. They are different. So even if the mayor doesn't like it, the chief of police, Trump is following the law in this case.
Two things. What you're telling me is that whenever a situation arises where crime is not to the president's liking, it could be 400 rapes, it could be 300 rapes, but you're never going to have 0 rapes.
Of course.
Right? So what you're telling me is that whenever, because this is subjective, it's not
the president gets to decide.
Right. So you're telling, whenever a president feels like there isn't a satisfactory amount of crime, he gets to send in troops. Now, I want to ask you, do you think that's a good precedent to set across the country? Militarized troops, where Pete Hegseth now says they can be walking around armed. Is that the kind of America you want to live in?
All right, I'm going to go real political, RC3, on you and say, are you against our military? I'm just joking. I was hoping you were joking. That was just a joke. Easy one, right? No. And hey, but I will admit and say this. Like,
I was like, this got a real satirical, real
right,
quick.
it's real easy. Too easy. But look, first of all, I've called for militarization of this border, which we are seeing ongoing right now. And from a federal district perspective of Washington, D.C., having been there myself, I was never there in the past, but I've seen pictures and heard of what the place used to be. I do believe if the mayor, this response is only in reaction and retroactive to the actions that the mayor and police did not enforce. If people are breaking laws, doing drugs on the streets, I saw it. If they're doing that and the mayors are not enforcing the law or the safety of the community, I believe it is the president's responsibility in showing the front door of our country. And it's a beautiful place. Washington, D.C., between the monuments, the museums, to take your family, your kids to be able to go there.
But how is that a military issue?
Well, why is having the military there bad?
Because we don't live in a militarized society. That's why. Because we don't want to live in a society where we, walk out the door and we see troops everywhere. Those are third world country standards. That's not American standards. And if there is a problem with crime, then how about we do better policing?
I would not say that it is militarized. There is ongoing military efforts.
What would you call it?
Enforcement. They're not people that, this isn't Germany with Jews in World War II saying that all the Jews have to walk on the left side of the street and the Mexicans have to walk on the right. These are people that are walking around. You've seen the videos, you and I both.
So that's the extreme.
Yes, it's extreme. They are enforced. Is not doing drugs, homeless. They are allowing them to go on with their lives. And if you're having that lifestyle in our nation's capital, it's not going to be accepted. Go to LA, Austin, bro. Hey, you've been to Austin.
I'll tell you, people vote with their feet.
That's true.
Nobody's going right now. If you look at the stats, Washingtonians on their, whether they're going out to restaurants or whether they're going out to bars, by 70%, 60 or 70%, I saw this stat, they oppose the militarization of their own city.
Sure.
70%, and they're supposedly the ones going through the crime, and they're against it. Nobody wants to live in a militarized state, especially when, there's another thing that you mentioned, especially when crime has been going down. Now, there is no perfect amount of crime. We all wish crime was down to zero, right?
Of course.
But what you're forgetting and what you're neglecting in your analysis of the crime rate is that the trend is going down, right?
And now he's helping it lower it even more.
If the trend was going up, then maybe you can make a case.
But why would we want that? Why not continue that trend? So why not try to bring it to zero?
Because somebody look, and when you came in here, I saw you take a picture of the founding fathers.
Yes, sir.
Right there, because everybody who knows me knows my respect for the founding fathers. Benjamin Franklin said, "He who is willing to give up a little bit of liberty for a little bit of security
deserves
none. What?
None.
Neither. Deserves neither." Take advice from the founding fathers, man. And you're willing to give up a little bit of liberty for a little bit of security.
But I would rebut that the military that is there, the National Guards, remember, we don't have the Navy, we don't have SEAL Team 6 on the streets of DC. Yeah, okay. I hope so. No, but there is no liberties of Americans walking on the streets of DC that are being encroached upon. Only those that are breaking the law are subject to the enforcement. Like I said, saying that their liberty is being encroached upon is an extreme position. Just like me saying separating the Mexicans and the Jews on the streets walking is an extreme position. I do believe we're right in the middle right now.
What I'm saying is I don't want to open up the window to even get to that point. Okay?
Maybe, and if it does, I will agree with you. If it became more extreme and we saw liberty being encroached upon, I would agree with you. Like, no, this is not an American value.
And let me ask you something. It's not weird to you that other governors of other states are sending their own National Guard to DC? Many of which, of those red, states who have worse crime rates than DC. You don't find that a little strange?
So you know why they're doing that?
Why only the blue states?
They're doing it because I believe the federal statute is the troops can only actually stay there for a certain amount of time,
30 days,
and then they have to leave. So, hey, business loophole. You bring another state. We got 50 states to work with.
That's the scary shit I'm talking about, man.
But that's the law. That's the way the law was written. If it's scary, then our representatives and Congress need to change the law. But if you're following within the law and we're not encroaching upon liberty, which I would argue we're not, then I maintain that things are going very well.
Look, I maintain that just by having military boots on the ground and the chilling effect that has on its own citizens, like the Washingtonians themselves have said, is already encroaching on liberty.
Well, feelings do not equate to encroachment upon liberty.
I'm not talking about feelings. I'm not talking about feelings. I'm talking about, like I told you earlier, they're voting with their feet. They're not even going out.
But how is encroaching upon liberty following the law? Because that is what's occurring. Like you said, 30 days. Another state comes in. That's the law that was set up. Now again, though, DC though is a federal district. It is not a city.
Gregory, because I don't want to go out and have interactions with cops on a fucking daily basis. I don't want to go out and see military on every corner asking me where I'm going. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, if you're not doing anything wrong, then what do you have to fear? Fuck you. Hey, this is America.
I would argue that in the Valley, actually, we live in a very similar occurrence. There's Border Patrol everywhere. I'm at Taco Palenque, got Border Patrol sitting down. I go to McDonald's, they're in the drive-thru. If you were to be committing a crime, if you were passed out on fentanyl or smoking a joint in that Taco Palenque, the Border Patrol.
You're going to the extremes.
No. Like, I'm saying that here we have a federal law enforcement presence, all from Rio Grande City all the way to Boca Chica.
When was the last time you've been harassed by a Border Patrol agent here in the Valley? I'm not talking about your brother-in-law.
But
never. Exactly. Never. It doesn't happen.
And I bet if you were to go to Washington, D.C. right now, you would not be harassed by a National Guard member.
Well, then they should. Their presence there should be welcomed with everybody by open arms.
It's a political discourse that people are not happy that they're there. Because Trump's actually doing something.
No,
he's not sleeping on the job.
No, because people don't want to live in a police state. I mean, this used to be y'all's strong point. Y'all used to say this.
Yes, of course. But the police state.
How did we liberals end up being the ones, sounding like conservatives of, 2012?
Donald Trump, bro. But no, seriously. It's because the crime has been significant. The trends are not good enough. But like I said, the numbers themselves. And if Donald Trump has the authority to change for the better that city and utilize National Guard members, I completely agree with that. Just like I agree with having the military for southern border. I know Border Patrol agents and people that are Republicans, conservative, they do not want the military here on the border. I disagree. I do think that a supporting force is helping drive down crime, drive down illegal immigrants. And similar in Washington, D.C., maybe the police and the mayor didn't want to do their job. Maybe they were doing their job, but I would argue the supporting force has a net positive effect on society.
You know, you could get crime down to zero if you put a police officer in front of every house.
That's the extreme, though.
No, I know, but I'm saying you could get your way. Donald Trump could get crime down to zero, right? But we don't live in that country. We live in a country of laws, and we live in a country of rules. A lot of those rules are not on us, but are limitations on what the government can do.
And you said it yourself, RC3. 30 days is the law.
We actually started a revolution because same kind of shit was happening. Now, it hasn't gotten to that point.
Right.
But in America, we shouldn't even be having this discussion.
Look, I'll be honest, and I've been to DC a few times, and I agree with it. And I hope he sends National Guard troops to Austin, Texas next. Austin's bad, man.
You're crazy, man.
Austin's unsafe. I mean, the people that are dying on the streets there, and Austin actually has a significant police force. The problem is that my kids know it as the smelly city, unfortunately. When I take them downtown, when we're eating restaurants,
well, smelling's not a crime.
Going to work, smelling's not a crime. But people that are defecating on the streets, that are passed out on drugs, that inhibit public safety and health standards, that is a crime.
That's a city problem,
and it can be enforced.
And that's a city problem.
And you're right, and that's probably why.
And their people keep voting the same people in.
That's
their choice. Federalism.
But DC is not a city.
It's federalism.
DC is not
another
a city.
Conservative principle that just has been thrown by the wayside. Federalism. You let states handle their own business.
Very true. And Governor Abbott, I know for a fact, has been fighting Austin City Council, Austin Mayor, and not allowing DPS and others to go into that jurisdiction of downtown Austin. And so the problems with big cities, like historical cities like Austin, like Detroit, like LA, like Washington, D.C., New York, they share similar consequences of what we see. And if no one goes in and disrupts or intervene from that, it goes downhill and gets worse.
But maybe they like their cities. You ever think of that?
Well,
maybe Austin, how do you say, Austintonians?
Austinites, I think.
Maybe Austinites like Austin the way it is. Maybe they want to keep it weird, right?
That's probably why they've been losing some population.
Well, leave them the fuck alone. If they want their city, they keep voting the same people in. This is America, Gregory.
It is America, but public safety, public health, and even the government's job sometimes is to protect people from themselves. I'm not saying I want that every day or a police officer in front of their home, but the government's job is to protect and serve people. And sometimes that literally means protecting you from yourself.
Until the hand gets too heavy.
Officers that have badges, officers that have their insignia of the department that they work for, yeah, they're wearing a mask, they're wearing sunglasses, not showing their face. I see them wearing a tag. They're wearing a name badge or like their physical ID with their name right in front of it. So again, I would ask, please show me the case that you opened up with on your initial rant, that the officers were not identified or the officers did not have that. I have not seen that.
I promise you, there are videos out there right now. It's a case out of San Bernardino County. Okay. And I actually saw the video earlier because, again, I didn't want to use it in my monologue.
Sure. And,
it'd come back and be like, yeah, I'm misrepresenting the situation. So there was that video, and then there was a follow-up, because the first video that came out was from one of the kids inside the car, right, where they were just recording, and the agents were outside. The people inside the car were asking the agents to, who are you? Identify yourselves, and they just ignored them, and they were just telling them, roll down your window, come out. And they said, no, who are you? What agency are you from? And they completely ignored the call to identify themselves, and they broke the windows like right away, man. Like, that's third world country shit.
Well, look, seriously though,
but they broke the windows, and as soon as they broke the windows, the driver was like, fuck this.
Well, look, I've seen local police break windows. I've seen Border Patrol police break windows. You said it yourself. They were unidentified. Maybe they were undercover sheriff offices working on a drug deal. That's something we don't know about. But that being said, if they're following the law for whatever jurisdiction or agency they're working for, if you don't know and they were unbranded, how do you know they were federal Border Patrol or HSI agents? They literally could have been local working on a case, in which case they do break windows, are not identified, SWAT team. I mean, how do we know without that information?
Everybody has to identify themselves. They have to, by law. I mean,
undercover agents?
they have to identify themselves.
No, depending on the warrant, no.
Well, I mean, if y'all didn't have a warrant, not only that, they went back to the house after the incident happened because these guys went back to their own house and they called the police without a warrant still, and they told them fuck off, so we'll wait outside. And it's the neighborhood that came out and they started attacking the fucking agents.
I'll be more than happy to check it out, but just going off the details that you have said to me, that is my response. That if they do not have any kind of identification, then they could be any agency, and there are, between FBI to local sheriff, constables, they do that on a regular basis.
They could be constables. They could be fucking aliens.
Could have been Home Depot security guards, bro.
It could have been Martians. It could have been fucking whoever. The point is, we don't know, and that shit don't fly in a state like Texas, Gregory.
If you're doing it legally, it does.
And legally means that you have to identify yourself.
Not if it's an undercover operation, a cartel leader bust, child trafficking. You think people are knocking on doors and identifying themselves? They're trying to bust up a child sex trafficking?
No, but that's
not. Hey, I'm here from the police. I'm here to come pick up.
No, but they have a warrant. You can't just bust down a door without a warrant.
The warrant will be shown in court.
No, that's not the way it works. If they were getting
arrested, in some cases it is.
That's not the way it works.
And we're being very nitpicky on the situation.
We're being nitpicky because it involves Americans and it involves our freedoms. Yeah, I'm being very nitpicky because not even you want to listen to this. You said earlier you're not all white, but you're not all brown either. You get pulled over. You have kids.
Yes, sir. 4.
You have your kids in the back. These unmasked agents jump out of a van, armed to the gills, telling knocking on your door, telling you to roll your windows down and come out.
I'm gonna follow their directions,
just like that.
If I'm outgunned, I don't want my kids to get hurt. I would, if I'm going down, I'm gonna sacrifice myself for my children.
But how do you know that those are good people? If you cooperate with bad people, aren't you putting your entire family at risk? The thing is, you don't know.
They had to have some kind of badge, some kind of information.
What if all they had was a tactical gear vest that said police? Is that enough for you?
That's an identifier. That is a legal identifier.
You can literally buy that at Spirit Halloween store.
You could, and if you did that and were not a police officer, you would 99 times out of 100, 999 times out of 1,000, it's going to be a police officer.
You ask for identification. It's your right. It's your birthright as an American to ask for identification of those that are detaining you, pulling you over. It's never been a problem because we've never had this problem.
Not in all circumstances. You're talking about general traffic stops, sure, but for undercover, extreme situations, federal agencies, there are different rules that apply. And let's talk about FISA warrants, where they're listening to you without a explicit search warrant, just like what happened to Donald Trump during that time. Those are not the same rules.
But who signs off on a FISA warrant? I mean, I guess we can shift gears. You say you grew up in Weslaco, but you weren't raised here.
Right. No, I lived in Weslaco until about 5, and then 1992 moved up to Harlingen.
92.
Yeah, born in 87, 92, went out to Harlingen.
Went to Harlingen, and you were raised in
Harlingen. I graduated high school there, went to A&M afterwards.
What was that like?
Yes, sir. Great, man.
Definitely parties like in A&M.
Really always outside in the field, bonfires, huge bonfires, real, just a keg, cups, music, chilling, nothing. I couldn't afford to go to bars of the downtown district, so it was always country guys, 10 guys in the back of a truck driving out of town, having
girls?
a good time. Yeah, there would be girls there too. Nice. I lived in a dorm though it was an all male dorm, So the dorm, we really stuck together, really hung out a lot. It was kind of like a frat. We even had a saying though, don't buy friends, buy beer. Instead of joining a frat, like just hang out in the dorm. And it's a good time, man. Great. Moses Hall, RAB.
And when did you graduate from A&M?
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
During that time, I was here it was Pan Am at the time.
Yeah. My mother went there.
And I didn't have a prayer of graduating. Some people are just not good in classrooms.
Yeah.
I was terrible in.
Hey, I dropped out and came back. In all honesty, I dropped out. I was actually done with college and then decided to come back.
Yeah, really. What'd you graduate for?
Natural resource management in hydrology, watershed, and water management.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir. That's why drainage, flooding, water from Mexico, the river systems, Arroyo, Rio Bravo, all of it's important to me because I know the background, the coast, the shrimpers. Like I know the management background and aspects of the waters of this place. And we're a delta. You already know that. I even tried to start that movement 10 years ago. The RGD didn't take off instead of the RGV, but we are a delta, part of the flooding and issues with that. But yeah, studied agriculture and long story, but I got into drones and cybersecurity later on with that as well. Yeah.
Did you ever speak to JV Garcia?
Yes, sir. As a matter of fact, him and I were just at the shout out JV. We were at the Harlingen City Council to meeting together. I am an expert witness on their coalition for drainage advocates, CODA, for meeting with various entities and trying to put together this master drainage program.
Cool.
So yeah, I met with them a few times. We were in Austin together at Senator Adam Hinojosa's office, talking about trying to get the state, because that's what's going to have to happen to fix the drainage issues we have. The state will have to declare a master drainage district, top down. And hey, I'm a Republican conservative calling for a tax on the people where you, me, anyone that lives here would have to pay $2 a month to the master drainage district so that we can all work together and utilize that funding to create a mechanism for draining water all the way from Alamo, McAllen down.
It makes sense, right? Like, the way it is now, it's there was a video after the last flood happened.
Yeah.
I think it was a lady out of San Benito. And she had gone to one drainage district and they told her, well, we're not responsible for that. It's this drainage district.
Yep.
So she went to that one and then they sent her back to the other one. Like, that is an issue, right? Like, the fact that, everybody points the finger, nobody wants to take the blame. There's a lot of areas in between that kind of get left out. We live in a delta. It's a problem that's going to require a top-down solution, unfortunately. And, we have too many entities involved, all with their own, interests, right? All with their own careers in mind. And as long as that's the case, ain't nothing going to change.
And honestly, I got a lot of work to do from a Republican perspective, because every time I talk about this with conservatives, they're like, nah, I don't want to give my money to another organizations in the Valley that is going to be corrupt, that is not going to utilize the resources well, another tax that I got to pay. That is not a political advantageous message as a Republican, a conservative to be promoting. But I know that for the safety of the homes of the Rio Grande Valley, but I remember being 5 years old at a daycare here in Weslaco. We were on Old 83 and it was flooding, and the lady's old, like 1987 Buick stalled, and we got out, and the water was only like 4 inches above my ankle, but we got out and pushed that sucker to the side of the road during like a tropical storm depression in like 1992, 1990. I can see the gray water and wind right now doing that day. But this problem, and JV has said this many times, and I stole it from him, that flooding respects no man-made boundaries. We have this boundary of counties, drainage districts, cities, but flooding and Mother Nature doesn't respect that. It follows a geological boundary. And that's the science says that we need to base our drainage, our issues off of that fact, regardless of what drainage district you're in, whatever city. And that's why a comprehensive drainage district, in my opinion, makes sense, because that provides an independent agency that oversees, does the work, the maintenance, collects the funding through taxes as well, and tries to improve the drainage, starting with the most critical areas. And I know for you and I both know Weslaco, Texas is certainly a critical issue.
Yeah.
And Harlingen, Harlingen got that big rain just earlier this year.
Mercedes,
crazy Mercedes, because of the way the systems work. I mean, those are three of the places we need to start for sure. And I have a bad feeling, I'm praying to God that a hurricane does not come, a major storm, but we're due. I got married on Hurricane Dolly that weekend. That was one of the last like bigger ones that hit. But something like a Beulah, like those historic Cat 4, Cat 5s, it can happen. It should happen again. Statistically, it's gonna happen again. Like Katrina in New Orleans, Harvey in Houston. We have not seen a storm like that. And shoot, if you ask me, it's just going straight down south from the Gulf, and we are due. So, and I was actually, Joshua Morolas.
Yeah, he was actually here on the podcast.
Yeah,
maybe
right.
like a month ago. Yeah,
and I've talked to him about this. That the worst part about this scenario is that these kinds of projects take 20 years. Even if I posted on this page today, he's talking about, if we had $5 billion for drainage, that's what it would take to solve the problems. I'm like, Joshua, even if we had the $5 billion today, it would take 25 years to do all the digging and the projects and everything necessary. The manpower, it would take 20 years. They're still probably adding canals to New Orleans from Katrina. Like, these are long-term efforts that continue on. It is not a turnkey solution, unfortunately. Now, Elon Musk too. I know you're not the biggest fan, but some of this technology, like the Boring Company, digging huge ditches, canals, other things like that, that's how you move water. Big holes.
I can not be a fan of the man, Elon Musk, and acknowledge that there's some good things that he's doing. And I think Neuralink shows some promise.
Amazing work. Aggie, Texas A&M Aggie, was the first person to receive that Neuralink implant. He's the gentleman in the wheelchair that you may have seen that is typed in. He's an Aggie.
Is he the guy that's been in the news recently?
I did see him in the news. There's another girl who's now the second, who was more recently. It was a girl, like just these past couple months. This gentleman, I believe, received Neuralink either last year or earlier this year.
Just real quick, quality check. It's going good. Okay.
I thought you were talking about me.
Nah, you're doing all right. I think we've been agreeing too much on things.
That's my job, RC3. Like, that's what I tell people all the time. There's so many issues that we can nitpick. I'm fine with that, but there are just so many things that we can work on here in general that everyone agrees on.
But there's a lot of stuff that's not nitpicking. There's some stuff that's troubling that's happening, and I just think we're so partisan. Like we used to be able to say, hey, that's wrong because it's wrong. And now it's like, well, I'm a Republican, and if it's a Republican that does it, I'm gonna make excuses for it. Or I'm a Democrat, and if it's a Democrat doing it, I'm gonna make excuses for it. How about you just fucking call a spade, right? Sometimes a cigar is a cigar, right? And we just call it like it is, right? And I think that for this podcast, I think that's my job, to just call things the way they are, right? If and when I have a Democrat in here, I'm going to be asking them the same kind of questions, because honestly, I think the Democrats have failed the American people in plenty of different ways.
We're agreeing too much here.
Well, I mean, I'm setting you up. And I think there's a lot, to be responsible for, and there's a lot to hold their feet to the fire for. At the same time, there's a lot of cultural issues that you and I are probably going to disagree on. You're a Christian man.
Yes, sir.
Well, I was born in the church as a Pentecost. Pentecostal. You too? Yes, Pentecostal?
Sir. Apostolica.
Yeah. And
my friends would come to church with me. They never come back.
They saw everybody talking in tongues and jumping around.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Hey, that's where I came from, right? The same kind of, I remember, and hopefully my dad never sees this podcast. But I remember the first time that he started going to church. I was maybe in 8th grade, and he went to one of the first services, and it just so happened that in that service, they the Spirit touched the brethren, right? And people started running around and jumping around, and and speaking in tongues, and my dad was kind of looking around like, what the fuck did I walk into, right? Like, what'd you bring me into? And after my dad's very old school, he enjoys the art of mockery, and so for a while he just kind of made fun of him. But then he went back, and eventually they got him, and as they got him, I went out. So I'm not a believer anymore. I don't,
In God in general, or in Christ? Or?
Yeah, I'm what you would call an agnostic.
An agnostic.
Yeah, I went atheist for a while.
Oh, you're just following the pattern. You're gonna be back to Catholic very soon.
I mean, but then I might as well stay an atheist. I mean, not even Christians themselves, think each denomination is the real religion, right? Like there's just so many different denominations. They're at war with each other. They don't think each one's going into heaven, except for them.
Yeah,
I mean it's like
Pentecostals are very much
the Pentecostals always talk shit about the Catholics.
Yeah.
You know that.
Oh yeah.
Experience, like there wasn't a service or a sermon that would go without my pastor at the time just talking shit about Catholics. Basically saying they're all going to hell because they worship the Virgin Mary.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to do that. And
to be fair, the Pentecostal church is too. They say you go to hell for everything. Hair's too short, you're a woman, you go to hell. Your dress isn't long enough.
You're wearing pants as a woman?
I didn't see my mother wear pants until I was 19 years old.
No way.
Yeah, she was a nurse, and she would wear scrubs, but she wore the dress, long hair, no makeup. And one day she came home from work in pants. I opened the door to let her in, and I was like,
"Who are you?
Like, what is going on?" And she was like, "They made us change uniforms for work. I would never do it, but it's my job."
Really?
And she I was like 19. I'll never forget opening that door and seeing her in green scrubs for the first time.
Just out of curiosity, are you still Pentecostal?
No, as a matter of fact, Baptist.
That's
Southern Baptist.
Yeah, you moderated a little bit.
Yeah,
right?
yes, sir. Yeah. But
you're almost liberal.
Right. But honestly, my wife and I, we consider ourselves kind of musical missionaries. We love serving in churches. I mean, we help out musically from vocals, guitars, piano. Our kids play in the church bands as well. And so, I'll play at a Pentecostal church. Catholics don't have bands, so that's not going to happen. But Methodist, non-denominational, Baptist, we've served Lutheran. We've served at so many churches because if we're promoting the message of God, especially through song, we love fulfilling that mission, and that's how I look at us as kind of musical missionaries to almost any church.
So let's get back to politics, because
that's what religion is. Politics.
So okay, so as a Christian, as a vagabond, as a traveling Christian, what do you say about immigration?
I think there is biblical evidence and verses that strictly say, all the old cities in Judea, in the old Jewish community, they had walls, they had gates. There was masters, there was servants. And I think there's historical precedents going from the biblical age and even before that you respect the laws of your land. It is the church's job and a Christian's job to serve and do good into the needy, into the poor, into the hungry, but it's not the government's job. It doesn't say take taxation and use that money to feed the hungry or to the needy. Now, there is some civil service righteousness that goes on there, but I do think that there is definitely...
Well, it doesn't say it, but it doesn't not say it.
Fair enough, but it does explicitly say that there are walls, there are doors, you must seek passage, you must respect the laws, and I think the United States has done a good job of showing that from a global perspective, that we need to follow the laws that the people have put representatives in Washington, D.C. to initiate. And that's what's happening on the streets right now.
I asked the two pastors that were here last week, I asked them the exact same question. And here's how I framed it. I told them there are over 90 injunctions in the Bible about how we treat strangers and the foreigners. And the Bible calls them sojourners. Okay. In our land, and all these injunctions kind of sound like this: treat them like your own, because as you were once a foreigner in the land of Egypt, they are now in your land. I'm quoting verbatim.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Over 90 injunctions. There's one Romans 13 that says follow the laws of the land, and that's always the one that conservatives quote when they want you to shut up and do what the government says. You laugh because you know it's true.
I can find more. I'm very well versed in the Bible, and there are plenty more.
Well, find me a couple more.
Definitely.
There won't be more than 90.
Not that says specifically of the following the law of the land, but following the law of the house, the master, the kingdom, do good unto the
Right,
prince.
right.
There's different forms of government.
Nebulous verses that could be interpreted in however.
Well, you said sojourner, as
opposed to ones that just specifically tell you about how to treat strangers in your land.
That
literally, like, it just specifically tells you to treat them like your own.
Fair enough, but if they're breaking the law, then that stranger has committed a crime.
Well, I mean, if
and you're treating them with justice.
Well, if there's strangers in the land, presumably in the Bible, I mean, they've broken the law to get into the land.
No, that's not what it's saying. It's saying the stranger is just an unknown person to you. That they're not saying the stranger has come from another place and breaking the law.
A foreigner,
and you already know.
But a foreigner.
But that doesn't mean they're breaking the law.
A sojourner.
In especially in this time, if you broke any law, if a woman was caught, having infidelity with another man, she was stoned on the street, bro. Like, they would hit you hard with rocks if you broke the law. And so, in my opinion, and feel free to disagree, being a stranger in the land is not the same as being a lawbreaker where you will be stoned.
But if you just said that they would literally build walls,
yeah,
presumably there was borders, right? And if we're talking about strangers and foreigners, presumably they crossed those borders.
No, but there was no law, and I'm not saying that they would close the city gates at certain points in time. Maybe warring tribes, maybe to keep out certain populations, or a caravan of people that were looking to seek refuge and they wanted to keep them out. It's similar to Greeks and Jews, like we were talking about.
But the spirit of the text is just be nice to them. It doesn't say fucking put them in alligator Alcatraz, or jump out of unmarked vans and send them to El Salvador, or treat them like they're fucking animals. You agree with that, right? I mean, you agree there's a difference, right?
Nice.
I mean, like enforce the law. Okay, I get it, right? I mean, they got to see a judge. That's the law, right? So it doesn't say strip them from their due process and then send them to a fucking death camp in El Salvador. That's not the Christian way.
Here's what I think's happening right now, and I think you'll agree with me on this. And I actually have a surprise for you at the end of this comment right here. Let's see. Donald Trump is showing force, just like a military engagement. You come in hard, you hitting hard and heavy. This is a show of force so that the rest of the world, Mexico, South America, will see what's going to happen to you if you come into our country, if you are breaking the law. And that's not even getting to the problems associated with the Rio Grande Valley and the overpopulation of schools, medical systems, utilities. I'll get there later. But he wants this show of force in the media and for it to trickle down to those that are seeking to come illegally. Now, mark my words, and it's being recorded. I believe Donald Trump's going to pull a Reagan, because this is what he always does. Donald Trump comes out hard, hitting heavy, then he backs off. Donald Trump's going to give amnesty to everyone here and pull a Reagan.
You're out of your mind.
Because you know why? And I'll tell you what, it's a brilliant move in my opinion. And I wouldn't even say amnesty, at least maybe a worker program, a resident program, where after he gets out the criminals, those that have been on the files committing a crime.
But there's not enough criminals.
Doing something. After those are taken care of, he's going to back off. He's going to let everyone stay, pull them out of the shadows, because this is why, and you're going to come back to us too. The GOP is courting the Hispanic population that's going to set us up for life. You already know that the Democrats are losing the Hispanics. They are losing the racial culture warfare. Shoot, they're going for Muslims and communist Indians up in New York and stuff like that. Donald Trump is setting up the Republican Party to go after the Mexicans, the South Texans that voted for him here in these counties. And he's going to do that by showing them that, you know what, if you follow the law and work hard, we're going to allow you to stay. We're going to develop a process. And in my opinion, and that's why I'm calling it right now, he is going to do that before he leaves this. And dude, he's going to put his name on it. You're going to be the Trump Mexicans. No, I'm just kidding. He's not going to be the Trump Mexicans. But
he's so confident in the Hispanics, in fact, that's why he's gerrymandering Texas.
he is confident in Hispanics. So that's what won him the presidency. And the gerrymandering, I mean, think about it. The gerrymandering of Texas is and you know where the name came from, right?
Jerry.
But where did
I don't know.
So the story goes that there was this guy in Illinois or somewhere, and they redrew a district and it looked like a salamander. And the guy who represented the district and drew his name was Jerry. and so they called it a gerrymander. But it looked like the district looked like a lizard, and it looked all weird and stuff.
Really?
But I digress in saying that he did that because he saw the problems that occurred.
Because he's unpopular.
But he saw the problems that occurred during the first term with having not enough representatives backing him in Congress, and it stops the Trump agenda. So he is, in fact, trying to increase everything's legal, everything's precedent. And come on, you know about the other states.
How about just don't be an asshole, be likable, appeal to people, pass legislation that's popular, do something good for the people, stop doing shit for rich pedophile buddies.
They're dead.
Stop hiding fucking shit that your entire movement was based on. How about just do those fucking things and win, by popular vote?
But
I mean, like, why the need? I mean, I'm not saying it's illegal. It's not illegal.
Sure.
It's breaking a norm.
I can agree with that.
But why is it break? Like, why do you have to break the norm if you felt like your agenda was so popular with Americans?
Because to the victors go the spoils. Elections have consequences.
Right, but now we're in a race to the bottom, right? Because now California is doing the exact same thing.
There we go. That's a beautiful system we live in. We have the freedom for California to do what they want. Federalism, going back to your point, and Texas gets to do what we want.
Right, but now, people who are living in these gerrymandered districts, so like you just said it yourself earlier, right? Your district completely changed, right? So it drowns out the voice of a lot of people.
I'll say this right now.
But is that true or not?
I do not think that it drowns out the voice of a lot of people.
How can you not think that?
Well, no. You're asking if the gerrymandering drowns out the voice of a lot of people.
So for example, if District 34,
right,
before
we lost Hidalgo,
had a lot of Hispanics in it.
I knew you were going to vote for me anyway, RC3, but still,
I mean,
you can't now. We haven't voted fraud.
Well, just listen. I mean, so 34 doesn't include Westlego anymore, right?
No, sir.
Damn, I can't vote for you.
That's going on. That's going on Facebook for sure.
I would.
Oh, thank you.
Lost my train of thought now. So District 34, used to have the majority Hispanic vote. Hispanics, you typically vote Democrat, right?
Right.
So you include a whole bunch of cities, norther up. There's a little more white rural population. They vote Republican. You include enough of those, it completely drowns out the voice of the Hispanics. I mean, I'm not making that up. That is what they're doing.
I mean, look, but
is that true or not?
No, because just to push back on that, let's talk about the real facts here. The current representative of District 34 is Vicente Gonzalez from Corpus Christi, Texas. That's where he's from. And now, Senator,
but he was born here, hold on.
No, he's from Corpus. He was born in Corpus, I believe.
He has family here.
I'm sure he does. But what I read his history and profile. What do you call it? Campaign, whatever background info on the campaign opposition research. He's from Corpus Christi, and that's where originally he was from. Senator Adam Hinojosa, he's from Corpus Christi. So the Corpus Christi area does have a significant, Hispanic population. There are more white people going further north, as you alluded to, for sure. I would disagree, though, that drowning out the voices. Let's be honest. And to your point, Cameron, Hidalgo, and Starr County all voted for Trump. From a federal representation perspective, though, Texas 34 went to Vicente Gonzalez. And going back to what I was saying originally,
would he beat again?
I would actually did not think Texas 34 who did Vicente beat? Mayra Flores. I do not think 34 actually needed the redistricting. I think it will help, but with all the trends that happened, I would argue that if the district were stay the way it is today, that a Republican will win going in the future. It was a candidate problem that occurred in District 34, not a actual people demographic voting Republican or Democrat. Because Donald Trump won Cameron County, he won District 34. The people did not like the candidate of District 34 for the congressional race, which is why I'm running today.
But going back to my point, right? If you have districts that are drawn out like fucking like Pete Hegseth fucking drew them drunk with the Etch-a-Sketch.
Some talent.
You got to admit, it's kind of fucked up, right? Like there's one district that's going from Austin, right, and they drew it up where like it's just basically looks like a fucking snake, and then it opens up and it includes like a whole bunch of like white conservative districts.
I haven't seen it. I'm not gonna say I've seen it.
I mean, we all know what they're doing, right? I mean, it's not.
I think there's some sensationalism associated with the term gerrymander and what's going on. It's just the flavor of the day from a media perspective. And the fact of the matter is that it's legal. It's historical. It's been going on for a long time. And right now, the only way you can prevent or stop it from happening is Democrats would have to win state elections. The state legislature chooses the districts. They have a majority in the House. You saw the Democrats break quorum and run away so that they wouldn't have to vote. They came back. Why? Because they're, to use a Valley word, scared. And they needed to come back and got the voting done. So the actual answer to this entire problem, if you see it as a problem, is that Democrats have to win at the state level if they want to prevent this type of thing from happening. But I would push back that if you look at other Democratic-run states, they're doing the exact same thing. So it is more normalized. We're just making it the flavor of the day from a media perspective.
But even states like California, they actually have independent bodies, right? That kind of prevent, whether there's a Democrat in office or Republican office from gerrymandering the shit out of the state, right? Like there's at least some kind of a stop guard from doing it, right? So Gavin Newsom had to get enough votes from this independent body to be able to get this done. He has to bring it up for vote for the whole state of California. Californians have to vote on it. We don't have that shit here. I didn't vote on that.
You said it yourself, RC3. Federalism,
yeah.
But California, right. You can move to California if you want. I'd like for you to stay here.
But you have.
I think I'm convincing you to come back to Christianity and vote for me.
But you have to admit something. There would be no need for Trump to be pressuring Governor Abbott, Governor Hot Wheels, to be pushing pushing gerrymandering if he felt like he was doing so good in his presidency.
I don't agree. Because Trump is treating this like business and he's playing it both ways. He's making sure the deal gets done, whether it's
you don't believe that.
No, I do. That's exactly what's happening. Is that I know this is top down that Trump is issuing the order to Abbott. Abbott is following. You don't follow the order, you're going to primary Republicans with someone else. They'll choose them. It's a whole system. It's very easily recognizable. But I will say, though, that Donald Trump's being brilliant, in my opinion, and playing it both ways. He's like, well, just in case I don't win because I'm so good looking in orange. If that doesn't happen, he is making sure that the districts will help add more Republican seats to the House, which is a brilliant move. I mean, it's chess, not checkers, I think.
But it is. I mean, again, if he felt like he was doing good, I mean, there's no need to do that.
Not necessarily. I mean,
he sees numbers, like you said, he's not a stupid guy.
Yeah.
He sees the writing on the wall.
And statistically, midterm elections, whoever holds
don't favor the voting president.
It's just a hedging of your bets, in my opinion, and it's a smart move when you can do it. You're taking advantage. It's a politically advantageous move.
But it's not good for the country, though. It could be good for your own political skin, but it's not good for the country to have a race to the bottom.
I will say this. We're not seeing it here in Texas, but there's a reason why other states are not gerrymandering or don't want to or need to. It's because I believe also gerrymandering can have a maximum. You can actually draw the district so ridiculous that you can't make them any more ridiculous without switching against what you're trying to achieve, if you're in power especially. So when you look at Connecticut and Delaware and all these northeastern small states that have these crazy districts with just 3 or 4 Republican seats versus 12 to 15 Democrats, they don't do it, and they can't do it because they've reached a maximum where they've already maxed the crap out of their gerrymandering for the Democratic side. California has not, because California just recently, Ronald Reagan in the 80s from California. California has seen this ultra shift to liberalism over the last 40 years. And so they still have almost room to grow from a gerrymandering Democratic perspective. Texas has been conservative, and in my opinion, there's been some up and downs with talking about turning purple and the rise of progressive. But I do think from a overall state perspective, the Hispanic population being conservative is increasing the conservative nature of Texas as the Hispanic population grows. And so this is actually benefiting the will of the people and the state, in my opinion.
But I do think that Texas is a purple state. I don't know how much longer Ted Cruz has in power
before he goes to the Supreme Court. I think either this term or the next president, he'll be on the Supreme Court.
You think so?
I do.
Oh man,
he's a knowledgeable guy. Whether he goes to Cancun or Puerto Vallarta or Guadalajara, he's a knowledgeable constitutional.
Listen, I can't respect any guy who puts his political career before his own family. Who, when Donald Trump insulted his fucking wife, bent his knee, and went to work for his campaign because he wants to be president someday. I don't think he wants to be on the Supreme Court. I think he wants to be president of the United States. And
it's an interesting. It's a hard, in my opinion, too. Hey,
you don't kiss ass the way Ted Cruz kissed Donald Trump's ass right now if you don't want to be president one day. That's just the fact of the matter. To kiss ass the way Cancun Cruz has kissed, Lion Ted has kissed ass, you don't do that to be a Supreme Court justice. You do that because you have presidential ambitions, and you know that the winds aren't on your back, and that you got to support whatever movement is currently in vogue. And that was MAGA. It wasn't, whatever Ted Cruz was whatever, libertarianism Ted Cruz is pushing.
And that's what I was going to say, is that I think also your political ambitions change while you're in office, while you're doing your political career. And I think right now, Ted Cruz would be very happy and would settle with the Supreme Court appointment because it's for life.
Yeah.
And so even being president, you can have those ambitions, but the current GOP party, I would say, is not in favor of Ted Cruz becoming president. And I'll tell you one thing right now, RC3, I'm sure you don't hear this on your show very much, but I have political ambitions of being president one day too. You know why? Because if I can flip this district in 34 from, it has never had a general election win a Republican seat ever. If my methodology on social media of even just talking smack and bantering about politics sometimes, if I can convince Hispanics to vote for me, to vote conservative, to go on the right, then I believe that this methodology, this strategy could take me to the White House because of the rise of the significance of the populations of the Hispanics across the United States. And it's just like you said, talking about the trends. For me, even this race in 34, I may not win this primary, but I'm in it for the long haul because I also think I have the best interests of the Hispanic population. Growing up as a Habsy along the border, watching the border culture, being a part of it my whole life, there will be lunches in Washington, D.C. if I'm there, bro. The White House chef, I'm gonna make him make lunches just on the make the grease still come from Buddha, so that way it tastes the same. But I think there's a lot of room for growth, and it's great to have these political ambitions. Maybe it'll change for me one day. But Ted Cruz, similarly, those I don't believe are there, and I don't think he will make it there. A Supreme Court justice appointment, not that I would ever even want that, is a very significant achievement in life to attain.
But that's not what he wants. That's not
maybe
what he wants.
Now though, maybe at one time.
Listen, we're gonna go to break. I don't know if you mind staying another 20, 30 minutes, talk about a little more social issues, abortion.
I thought I was gonna spend the night. We're gonna eat some barbecue. And
I gotta.
Yeah, we're good. We're
put
good.
your tent out there for you.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, then everybody, we'll be back in about 10 minutes.
Sounds good.
Mr. Greg Kunkle, and we've already touched upon a lot of different subjects. We talked about immigration, the Trump presidency, the economy, tariffs,
federalism, DC.
We've touched upon it all, and now we're gonna go into social issues, things like abortion, things like transgenderism, all these things that Republicans lose sleep over. All right, so
keeps me up at night.
Keeps you up at night. I know it does. So let's start with abortion. You pro-life or you pro-choice?
Pro-life all the way.
Pro-life all the way. What does that mean?
Well, right now, actually, Donald Trump is the most pro-life president in history. He's been recognized for all the strides that have been made. So for right now in South Texas, being pro-life actually means supporting adoption. Because one of the biggest things that I hear is like, yeah, sure, you want the child to live, you want them to be born, but what happens afterwards? Where's the support system? Where is the system that will be taking care? Well, to me now, here in South Texas specifically, they even have a term for a lot of the Hispanic families that you already know. They call them family of kin, where you were raised by your tia or you were raised by your cousin. You don't even know it, but that's actually a form of adoption. And people don't talk about, like, I'm not adopted. I was raised by my tia. But even here in South Texas, adoption is a big issue that I believe needs more federal support, more federal resources. And so to me right now, aside from eliminating abortion, on that note, one of the best things that's happened is that the 2 largest abortion clinics in the world in Houston, Texas just closed. Planned Parenthood, literally abortion factories, gone, no mas. And what does that mean? That means as conservatives, Republicans, GOP, we need to pivot to supporting the children, supporting adoption, providing homes to even unaccompanied migrants that cross the border and are looking for a family. Because check this out, talk about a progressive idea, RC3. Every child has the right to a mother and father, because literally without them, you cannot be conceived. It's genetic, down to the chromosomes. And so that's a wild idea for me, but I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that being pro-life now means that we find children families.
Okay, so let's get down to the nuts and bolts of what pro-life actually means, though. When you say pro-life, does that mean that there are no exceptions for abortion in your mind, or is Plan B killing a baby?
My wife and I have talked about this, and from our family and being pro-life, what I think it means is that, yeah, there's honestly no exceptions to
at
it.
All.
Nope. And if my wife and I have talked about it, if she had a child that may cause a life-threatening pregnancy, she would go forward with that child, because that is what life is. And we need to do, the reason talking about trends, RC3, that we need to look at pro-life as a humanitarian aspect is because if we kill unborn children for any reason whatsoever, maybe they have Down syndrome, maybe it's a health risk to the mother, maybe it's even a rape, it's not the child's fault that they were conceived in rape. That we shouldn't punish the child by murdering them because of a crime committed by another individual. But regardless of the circumstance that has happened, if we become amendable to extinguishing life, we're no better than the Nazis. Just like you were saying, it's a trend. And if we start eliminating life in the womb for a rape victim and just willy-nilly, it's going to trickle down. It's going to filter down. Our children will see that. And so, I tell my children, and I tell everyone in our family and everyone that supports me, that being pro-life is a humanitarian global issue where we want to preserve as much life as possible, starting with one cell in the womb of a woman.
So you mentioned the Nazis, and you're kind of equating abortion to extermination.
The genocide,
right?
yes, sir. Yeah.
So in your mind, a 2-3 week year old zygote is the same as a full-grown Jew getting gassed. Like that's the same thing.
From a scientific genetic perspective, they have the same amount of chromosomes. They have the same nucleus and cell construction. Do they have the same thought and volume of mass occupied in our universe? No. But the fact that life was created, life, DNA, genetics is information. It is passed down. It is why we are here today. So protecting life, God's creation.
But where does that life begin?
That life begins at conception.
What does that mean? So does that mean that like 2 people just finish having sex and bam, third person in the room with constitutional rights? What's that time frame like?
When I mean specifically conception of when fertilization occurs and there is a fusion of, which is still like unknown in the actual currency occurs, of DNA and chromosomes to create a new set of cells and a new zygote, some people may call it. That is the creation of life. A new life, new information is born.
So then that
is created.
And that 2-day, 3-day-old, in your mind, deserves constitutional rights.
I do.
Like a full-born human being.
Yes, I do. I believe so, because it's about the potential. What does that 2-cell, single-cell zygote become in the future?
No,
because the next Mozart.
I don't think you actually believe that.
I do.
And I'm gonna look, I want to run a thought experiment by you. Let's just say, right, you ran into a burning building, right, and you had on one side you had a 2-day-old zygote in a petri dish, and you had a 2-year-old baby on the other side in a crib crying, and you can only take one out. Which one would you choose?
Of course, I'm gonna go with the crying baby,
Why?
without a doubt.
If they're both equally the same and they both have the same value and they're both human life, why would you go for the crying baby?
Although I appreciate your philosophical conundrum and false dichotomy,
It's not a false dichotomy.
it is. It's actually a what do you call it? There's a
No, but it's not a false dichotomy because you yourself said that they're the same thing. But I'm proving
did.
to you that they're not,
I did,
and you inherently know that.
I did, and I'll give you reasons for it. But this is a what's the term that I'm forgetting? Where it's a not philosophical equation. It'll come back to me here in a second. But the reason I would choose the child is because there is a higher increased risk. If I could choose only one, of the child actually being saved, of living, of sustaining. So you're not actually asking me, would I choose based off who's alive? They're both alive, sure. But the fact of the matter is that the child has a higher probability of being able to be saved, being able to sustain life in that scenario that you're giving me.
Let's just say, for hypothetical sake, they both have the same amount of what it is that you're saying.
But you can't, because if you're in a
right.
petri dish, that automatically qualifies as like significant factors going against you.
Well, I know,
It's a controlled environment versus a live
I understand,
human being.
but this is a hypothetical. This is a hypothetical. So let's just say, for hypothetical sake, they both had equal chances of survival, right?
Sure.
I mean, with technology in 2025, you have a 2-day-old zygote in a petri dish, and you have a 2-year-old
In a
baby
burning building.
in a crib crying. You had a choice. They're both life to you. You say they're both the same. This one deserves constitutional rights. That one deserves constitutional rights. Why are you still choosing the baby over the two if they're the exact same thing? Inherently, there has to be a reason why you're choosing the one that's alive. Why is that?
Well, they're both alive, and
Right.
that's what I stipulated from the beginning. And for that matter, they could both equally die in the burning building. The fact remains, though, from a saving perspective of saving a other life, the chances of successfully saving that life are increased in a higher probability for the physical body itself. Now, however, from a law-abiding perspective of killing life, let's switch it around a little bit. Maybe you had a murderer and he went into this building, and if he shot a 2-year-old or destroyed the petri dish with some woman's future baby that she had, in vitro fertilization and put there, I think those are both equal in the cases of murder, in that he destroyed life and could be charged equally.
I mean, well, the correct answer is, because it'd be crazy to choose the 2-day-old zygote in the petri dish over the baby that's alive. And
Sure.
And inherently, like, we all know that. We know that there's a difference between a 9-month-old, baby in its 3rd trimester and
Right.
a 2-day-old, I hate to say the term, clump of cells, but
Technically, you're a clump of cells. I'm a clump of cells.
right. Okay. So then again, why not save that clump of cells?
Sure, because again, the fact. Okay, and here's the final answer, and I'll give it to you very easily. Getting from a zygote, or just a few multiple cells, to being a 2-year-old flesh and human being has a diminished probability within itself of actual failure, like significantly. People fail in pregnancies and in vitro fertilization stuff all the time. Because you're asking me this scenario, though, I'm telling you realistically, like, your body naturally would choose the live crying child in there over the clump of cells, not because you actually know the information that is inherent. It's because you actually understand that this body is already here and it has a higher probability of sustaining life. It's real simple, actually.
I think
I love this example.
I think the real, the simplicity is in that the fact that we both understand that, yes, there is a difference between a clump of cells and a full-grown baby.
Right.
There is a difference in value. There is a difference in in probability, like you said. But even with the case that you just made, that about probability of survival, that changes with technology. So you're not making a case out of principle. You're making a case basically saying, hey, listen, as we advance in technology, then our protections for et cetera, increase.
Yeah.
Right? Or our constitutional protections increase for zygotes if we can keep them alive. So it's not a argument based on the value of the potential human. It's just based on whether it can survive or not.
But I am making that argument under the conditions of the scenario you presented.
But I also,
from a principle perspective, again, if we were to flip the roles and talk about murder, let's say a man walked in and either killed a 2-year-old or destroyed that petri dish, he would be murdering and could be subject to the law and ramifications of that for both scenarios, in my opinion, which would be equal. Both of them would be destroying of life.
But we destroy, petri dishes with, potential life all the time. Scientifically, we do that all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not illegal. And it's not illegal for a reason, because legally we don't recognize,
in different states, I think.
Legally we don't recognize, the clump of cells as human beings with constitutional rights. Right? Now, what you're saying is that we should give them constitutional rights. Right? And the point I was making with the example that I gave you is that and the point I was making with the Constitution, with the example that I gave you, was that even inherently a conservative understands that they're talking about two different things. Because why not? If they're the same thing, why not get the petri dish? Why not? If you truly have the same value for a 2-day post-conception clump of cells as you do for a 9-month-old or for a 1-year-old, why not get the petri dish? It's the same thing.
Look, and I appreciate the example, but I'm going to give you a real life example
Okay.
that my 9-year-old son has asked me. And he has said, hey, Dad, if we're climbing a mountain and you had a rope with Mom on there and then another rope with me on there, and you had to cut one for one of us to survive, who are you going to cut?
That's completely different, though.
But no, it's the exact same scenario. And I told him I'd cut your mother because you're a younger son. It's our job as parents to make sure you survive. And what I'm
How's
trying
your
to
wife feel about that?
Yeah, she was there. She was like, "That's the right answer."
But
what
that
I'm
is
saying,
a completely different scenario.
No, it is the exact same scenario.
How is that the same scenario?
You have to choose between life. Both lives are valuable, but inherently, as you said, you make a decision for a variety of reasons. But going back to the principal constitutionality of the matter, that is not the same as what we're describing.
So, okay.
That is applied by man and laws.
So then even right, well, I guess the point that I'm trying to get across to you is that it's complicated.
Of course.
Right, it's complicated.
I will not deny that.
Right. I mean, we understand that this is a very complicated situation. Texas has a heartbeat law, 5-6 weeks, right?
Right.
Presumably you're against that?
Presumably against no. Of sustaining life once you get to the heartbeat?
No, of having an abortion before 5 weeks or 6 weeks.
Yes, I would be against that. I think, again, no abortions should be allowed. Sustaining life, if I mean, this is a societal problem that we've brought to ourselves, of where anyone can get pregnant. It takes two to tango, and we want to just be able to eliminate the problem. And just like I said previously, if we have the mentality that elimination is the answer, especially in consideration of life, it can lead to devastating consequences down the road. It's an extreme, but it's an extreme that our world and society has seen before.
So then why not give that option to the mother? Like, I feel like we've gotten to a point where we actually believe that, mothers are just make these decisions willy-nilly. Right. And that, come on. And that, like the majority of abortions happen because everybody's just like, fuck it, whatever. Right. Under Roe versus Wade, the states had the option to, before 15 weeks, the states had the option of how they could regulate abortion.
Yeah.
Third trimester was a completely different story. The standards were stricter. What was wrong with that?
I mean, not even going into the case aspects of why Roe v. Wade was overturned. I actually like the decision going backwards because it increases federalism and allows state and people to vote and choose with their feet. You want California's abortion laws and that makes you move over there? So be it. You don't like Texas's laws? you are free in this country to leave. But the state of Texas, we as voters, again, we as the government, as the people, our representatives who create the laws in the government, have decided that past a certain point specifically, and that if there's a heartbeat and that life begins at conception, there are consequences to eliminating that life.
But now you like federalism.
I love federalism.
When as before, I
love that.
We just literally had a conversation about how I was the Federalist.
No. I will always support federalism. I don't think there's a single case where I would not support federalism. That's what our society is built on, our entire country.
No, there was. I mean, goddamn.
We talked about it, but we didn't disagree on it. We did talk about federalism.
So you're for federalism.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you're against the federal government encroaching on states' rights.
To an extent outside of the Constitution.
So then you're not a federalist.
Outside of the Constitution. That's how the system works. It says the Constitution specifically.
Well, obviously
says,
outside the Constitution.
Yes, and outside of the rights dictated to the nation, military, border enforcement, stuff like that. Outside, it should be left to the states. Right. Now, I will agree as a Republican that our government is
so we agree Trump should not send federal troops to Chicago. Cheers. Cheers.
No.
So you're not a federalist anymore.
But that would be at the discretion of the state, the legislation, and he would be sending not federal troops. I believe he's sending National
You think
Guard.
Chicago is going to be for Trump sending federal troops to Chicago?
The state of Illinois and their National Guard.
You think Illinois is going to be for that?
That is probably not. But the government and the president have the constitutional and the right under law to do that for the betterment of the state, for the betterment of the youth. That is a federal superpower that the president has. The power is explicitly dictated to the president as the authority to do something like that. So it is.
We already had
outside of federalism.
We already had this entire conversation
yes,
about like how the conservatives ended up being the ones for military boots on the street. And the fucking liberal is the one over here pushing back against
It's
it.
because
we've completely flipped around.
The liberals are the mayors and controlling the cities. That's why.
Well, what happened? What happened to fucking small government conservatism?
That's from a policy and regulation perspective.
Well, this is a policy.
That's what that means. No, this is a president using his constitutional authority with having to activate federal troops.
What constitutional authority does the president have to send in troops into Chicago?
Don't quote me on this because I'm not certainly an expert on constitutional presidential powers, but I would say that securing the safety and the well-being of citizens of this nation against their own government. For instance, let me give you a case example. Let's say Governor Abbott, which would never happen, wanted to start harboring illegal immigrants on his own, just like other states have done, keeping them and hiding them from the government, from DHS, from Border Patrol. The president and the federal government would intervene because that goes against what the policy of the nation is. So if you were acting against the protections that the nation provides, including our amendments, the first, the second, the third, safety of people and individuals, the president and the nation has the right to intervene and even use military assets at that time.
So if sanctuary states were illegal, why do we still have sanctuary states?
I mean, sanctuary states is just a figure of speech.
No, but it's a legal term.
And fair enough, but the president can also legally send in troops to those sanctuary states.
But how? Under what power? Like there has to be a certain power claim, right? And that's where we get to our disagreement, right?
Sure.
Is that every emergency that a president claims is subjective, right?
Yes. Executive orders.
President Newsom can come in and say, "Listen, white nationalism and Christian nationalism is a threat to our country. So what we're going to do is we're going to house federal troops around white churches, and this is going to, and we're going to, I'm going to get FISA.
Didn't Biden do that?
No. And I'm going to get FISA warrants, and I'm going to, spy on all these churches, and we're going to text these.
Obama definitely did that.
And we're going to spy on these motherfuckers. And, does he have the authority to do that?
He has the authority to do that. Is it legal? That is for the courts to decide. Like he could give the order and they would follow.
So then how are you going to say he has authority, but you don't know whether it's legal or not? It's not legal.
Because some of the
presidents do not have the power to just declare emergencies over complete bullshit. So, for example,
but that's RC3. That's what happened with Obama on Trump when Trump was coming into office and signing FISA warrants to investigate his surrounding community.
A judge
to tap
signed
the
that.
incoming. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm saying is that they do have the authority and they've done it. Even to incoming, talk about superseding your powers. A previous president spied on a future president and their campaign and tried to entrap them and creating false narratives.
Right, no, but it's different. But it's different because it's Steve Bannon.
All I'm trying to say, though, real quick, all I'm trying to say is that previous presidents have spied on normal citizens, and a recent president even spied on another president. Like, that's the level of overreach that our government. I will agree that there's
presidential candidate.
This is overreach, even during the beginning of his presidency, though, as well.
No,
that's when they had to sweep that's when he went to Mar-a-Lago. They had to sweep the White House. Like, they were looking for bugs.
What you're talking about is when they bugged Trump Tower, and they bugged that because Don Jr. had a meeting with a high-level Russian official, where even Steve Bannon himself said, "Hey, listen, like." Basically, Steve Bannon said, "I don't even think this is legal." Steve Bannon said that.
What I'm getting at, though, is that there's been an overreach of government from a spying, and I'll even say police state to a certain extent in general. And as a conservative, as a Republican GOP candidate, I want to lower the reach of government too. And you know what? Would I personally have sent in troops to DC? I probably wouldn't have. And as president, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't have the authority to make that decision. And I would have been more strict with DC, maybe withholding resources and trying to force the mayor or the police chief's hand in cleaning it up. But Trump makes different moves, and he's obviously a smart man to get to where, regardless if you like his character or not, he's obviously a smart businessman and deal maker to get to this point.
You're almost going to say a smart dictator.
No, I was saying businessman and deal maker, putting them together.
Well, I mean, let's hope not. All right, so abortion, I guess I kind of got your view on that.
Pro-life, yes.
So you said that your wife, that you all have had a conversation, basically saying that if she were to be pregnant and it were to be a life-threatening pregnancy, like let's just say like there is confirmation she is gonna pass, right?
Yep.
That she would go through with it. You're okay with that? Like, you're okay with her doing that and leaving 4 kids behind and you behind? Like,
that's pretty wild.
Wouldn't it make sense to, hey, you know what? Let's sit down. Let's think this through. This is your life. Let's just terminate, because you can always just try again and have a safe pregnancy. Like, as a girl, I'm sorry. Like,
You would tell me to go fuck myself, huh?
Yes, sorry. Yes, I would. Because I value my life, and at the same time, like, how selfish of me to leave him and our 2 boys.
I understand what you're saying too, and it is a it's not
I think
logical.
like that's one of those things that I think you'll have a very different outcome if you actually go through it.
Like, as much as I say, like, you know what, when it's my time, it's my time. If the Lord wants me, he wants me. Like, that I view life like that. But I'm sorry, at that point, I'd be like, don't even make that face. I'd be like, no, like, how can you just leave kids behind being raised without a mother?
Because in all honesty, you know, that is our job, though, is to have these children and to leave the children. You will, God willing, your children will bury you. And so in this case, it's just a lot sooner than you expected or would want it. But at the end of the day, if your child survived, then that's the win.
Like, you're not. Does the health of the children you're leaving behind not come into effect in the sense of, like, imagine the pain you're going to cause them. Imagine the anger knowing that, let's just say your kids are at an age that they understand.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, okay, so this life was worth bringing into knowing that you're going to leave us behind. Like, imagine the anger that your kids are going to have. Like, you don't know what it feels like for a kid to be so angry at a parent.
But for another life, it's righteous anger. It's righteous, sure. But to bring in another life, that the balance is shifted.
I feel like if I were there as a child, hypothetically,
Fair enough. You're right. You're probably right.
Exactly.
You're probably
so
right.
if you put yourself in a situation where your kids are now mad at you, their father,
Yeah.
and that just pushes them away. Like, how did you do the right thing, knowing like, okay, I brought a life, but you know what, my other kids kind of said, you know what, Dad, kind of don't want to be here right now. So you brought in a life to lose, hypothetical, 1, 2, 3, all the other 4 kids.
It's hard to understand, and I pray to God no one ever has to go through it. But I believe that the sanctity of life and trying to do every possible thing, including sacrificing your own for that life, is what we have to go through.
What about your wife's life?
Well, exactly. That's what we're talking about right now. Not even my. I was talking about her life. Yeah. We're talking about
like there's this virtue. There's like more of a virtue being put on like the act of bringing in a baby into the world, even if it means sacrificing somebody who's already alive.
I mean, but then let me flip the question around on you then. So 30 years down the line, when this child is having their own children and babies, are you gonna say that like, well, should the mom have lived and I not be here, and these children and the continuation of the line not be here as well? Like, what I think is happening is that you were looking at it instantaneously, but from a long-term perspective and going forward, the children's children of the children, that mother, their life has succeeded. Their lineage, that we're all going to die one day.
Producer
But
Claudius,
what we leave here is more
thought about that?
I'm not going to say I agree or disagree with what you're saying, but I think every family should be able to make their own decision when it comes to something like this. If she feels that way, she should be able to talk to him, to their family, and say, this is what we decide. Just like you had a conversation with your wife and said, this is what we're going to decide. It's not the role of the state to step in and say, you're pregnant, you should have it.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's actually the role of the state to step in and kill it. A mother, I mean, and don't get me wrong, mothers in real life murder their children every day. Right now, today, there's a mother who murdered her child somewhere, whether it was because she's crazy, whether she was mad at it, and so even whether you're taking a pill or they're cutting the baby out of you, it's actually the state who facilitates it. And that's where I'm drawing the line. You want to go, a woman wants to go and roll down a staircase or drink. There's even trees that the Indians, the Pacific U in the Northwest, they would drink a tea from the bark of a tree that would cause an abortion.
And for the people who want to have the child, the state also
there's also a bitter potion in the Old Testament that people would take to drink to have an abortion.
Yeah. And if you want to murder your own child, you actually have the freedom to do that.
But you're using the term murder.
Exactly.
And that's a little and that's disingenuous.
Well, it's subjective.
So
Right, but it's disingenuous.
So
like
even when it comes to rape, you agree that there should be no abortion.
I have a daughter.
I know, I do.
I have a daughter. She's right here. And if something would have happened to her like that,
Yeah.
I would definitely be like, an abortion has to be.
I have.
She would get.
Because
I know.
but
you're saying like pro life, bring life into this, whatever, but it's rape. Like, you don't think that's a constant reminder to us as women, like, this is what happened to me? There's going to be an automatic disconnect.
But wait. Look, here's like, we agree on something. We agree that if in your family you want to make that choice, you should have the right to make that choice. But in my family, if we want to make a different choice, then it's none of your goddamn business. And it's not the goddamn state's business either. That's
who controls the medical regulations.
That's our only disagreement. Look, as an American,
right.
you have every right. If you put value in the 2-day-old clump of cells over your wife, then you have every right to make that decision. And if your wife agrees with you, then who the fuck am I to say you guys are crazy? I mean, that's none of my business. But then don't come around and come into my wife's doctor room when she's talking to her doctor and tell her that she doesn't have the right to do something different, right? We have different views. Now, if it's a 9-month-old baby, then we can start having a conversation about these are different. But if it's a 2-week-old or 3-week-old, don't come around fucking trying to tell us what to do.
But that's not how it works. I'm sorry to tell you guys.
But that is how it works.
No.
How is that fair? How
Look,
is that
let
fair
me.
that we can't judge you for the decision you make with your wife, but
Because I will tell you.
Judge for the decision we decide to make.
I will tell you why. Because the state and our government has rules
And
that.
who the fuck is the state though?
Because, for instance, let me give you an example though. You could in China and Venezuela probably right now, they sell body organs and kidneys for money. You have 2 kidneys, you actually don't need them both. You have 2 lungs. You need your heart, but you could sell in another part of the world your part of your body to someone else who needs it to save their life. The United States does not allow that organ harvesting. That we have laws in the medical field based off morality, history, science, and they're all equal in that aspect. The laws of the medical field have a moral basis as well as a scientific basis. And for the same reason that the state says that you cannot sell one of your organs for money or a profit. I mean, people pay like 50 grand for a kidney because they're going to live in South America or China. But you can't do it because a doctor won't do the procedure because the state told them you can't because we have laws that said that. And that's how our system works. We vote on laws. The people decide the representatives. The representative present the laws. And again, going back to the federalism aspect, in Texas, we have decided what the limitations on abortion can be. I have told you all my views. In California, though, you could take your family and go do that and have the philosophy of like, stay out of my business. I'm going to do whatever I want. I'll stay out of your business.
So can I live in Weslaco and want an abortion? Can I go to a pro-abortion state? Can I have one without getting hounded by the state?
I mean, legally, I think you can. I don't know. I'm not going to say you should.
No, it's illegal.
But I don't know. But how can that? If you're doing the action, it's like committing a crime in another state.
Because, and look, y'all might want to fact check me on this because I don't know for sure.
Fair enough.
But I have heard that if the state of Texas finds out that you're having an abortion out of state and you're a resident of Texas, that they can go after you for that.
You have to be there for like X amount of time.
I don't think that is the case because again, when you commit a crime in another state, you're subject to the jurisdiction of the laws that say that is federalism. That is the law of Texas and the abortion aspect is within Texas boundaries. It doesn't apply in Oklahoma,
and that's the law.
Mexico,
and
Nevada.
That's the law now. Like Roe versus Wade used to be the law of the land, and then we go back to like the subjective part of this to another court. It used to be a nationally protected right.
Right.
To this court, they found reason to believe that no, this should go back to the states, right? Two different
because it's not.
Two different courts interpreted the Constitution 2 different ways. So
but one is supreme.
But 20 years from now, 30 years from now, well, no, they were both Supreme Courts. Right, Roe versus Wade was decided by the Supreme Court.
Oh, okay. You're talking about the 2 cases.
Yeah,
I thought you meant between a state and
no.
Gotcha.
So this new Supreme Court decided that actually, we're going to do away with it, right?
Yeah.
And in 20, 30 years from now, a liberal court can say, you know what? Well, we reinterpret it, and we want to bring it back.
That is very much possible.
Right?
Yes.
So,
and that is, I actually think though that is a good thing from a societal system perspective, because it is the Supreme Court's job to judge the laws with respect to the people, their experience, their court cases, where they're going from. Maybe, and I'm not saying I know, but maybe the current decision missed something or did something wrong. And in 30 years, they're going to see that just like they did because that's exactly what happened from the previous decision being overturned. And so that is part of having a court system is, the checks and the balances, the overturning. And sure, I want to support being pro-life and the laws to reflect that as much as possible. But I am very well aware that in the future it could be overturned. And I want it codified in congressional law, actually, would be the answer to that. And even Republicans are afraid to go in and do that because
that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, even Lindsey Graham, to my surprise, Sean
Hannity, Lindsey Graham, a lot of them, even Trump. Trump has said,
but because they thought it was going to be more of a losing issue for them. Lindsey Graham came out and he said, we should do 15 weeks. You would have hated that, but it would have been the law of the land.
Yeah, because I think it goes all the way. It's scientific. It's very easy to me. 15 weeks is to appease moral convictions of the clump
but it's
of cells.
not scientific though, because the scientists don't agree with you. Like, you can't say it's scientific. Like, nobody believes that, like, once you're done having sex, bam, there's a third person in the room. Like who believes that? Like nobody believes that. Like, and we should give him him or her, after we have constitutional rights.
I mean, I'll tell you right now though that a mother's body believes it, because the second that fertilization occurs, there's an instantaneous change in hormones, in the biology, in the chemistry, in the temperature of the woman, and all
a fever could produce that.
All of that is a science. A fever cannot produce a child, but all of that is a scientific basis of your own body, a woman's body, showing that something new in life has been created. It's a hard thing to wrap your. I'm not going to sit here and say this is an easy subject to understand and comprehend, but I think when you look at the totality of, again, life information, like how we actually are created, it's easier to look at your phone and not actually think about these things. But when you get down to it, there is one moment. It's like the Big Bang Theory. There's just one moment where creation occurs, and after that, the world literally changes.
Here's I guess I'm going to put a bow on this conversation, okay? And here's one thing that I will say about abortion, and where we have the upper hand, is that within reason, and I think Roe versus Wade was reasonable, within reason, we don't say, hey, I should decide what happens in your household. I shouldn't decide what happens, I should, my beliefs shouldn't supersede what your doctor and you decide. That's what we believe. You believe the opposite. You say my beliefs should supersede what you and your doctor decide. That's the difference in what nope. I don't think anybody here is for late, stage abortion.
Of course, sure.
Right. And so we could be very reasonable in what we think is the right limit.
Sure.
Right. But none of us are saying, hey, listen, we think you're fucking insane about your standard and how you and your wife would handle this situation. You shouldn't be able to do that. And if you do that, you should go to jail because you decided to, that your wife, that you basically murdered your wife. Nobody here would ever tell you that. But for some reason, you feel comfortable enough to tell somebody, hey, my beliefs say that you shouldn't do that.
That's wrong.
And a lot of us just say that that's bullshit.
That's not what I'm saying. Like I said, any mother is free to murder her child in or out of the womb. That you can do that.
And when we feel like you're free to murder your wife.
Yeah, exactly.
If that's the situation. But
the
only thing I say is don't fucking bring the fucking police officers into the fucking into the.
There are consequences to it if that's the law of the land. Now in California, that's not the law. In Texas, we have more conservative laws in protecting life.
For now,
definitely.
All right, and we'll leave that conversation there. We'll do one last one, and then we'll call it the night because it's been a good conversation. Like I like this conversation, and I'm glad that that the crowd's getting involved. Sorry, it hasn't been so pleasant.
Oh no! Hey, I'm used to this. I'm used to it.
I mean, you're running for Congress, man. You know what I mean?
That's right.
This is trial by fire here, bro.
Yeah. No. I'm not gonna lie. I enjoy it.
Yeah, good. Because I enjoy it too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about an issue that I know for a fact keeps Republicans up at night. Transgender swimmers.
Oh man, yeah. It's the bathing suits that keep you up. Nightmares, bro. It's the bathing suits.
I mean, how many nightmares have you not had about Dick Mulvaney? Is it the Bud Light? The Bud Light connoisseur.
Let me ask you this though: are you drinking Bud Light anymore? You're from San Benito. I know you're drinking Bud Light. Are you drinking Bud Light anymore?
I've never drunk Bud Light, man. Even being from San Benito.
That was back in '97.
That is true, though, man. Everybody does.
Everyone's drinking Bud Light.
That was back in '97.
Until that,
I was like, smoke what 6? Milwaukee's best.
Miller High Life. Hell yeah, for sure. Champagne of beers.
A champagne of beers.
I do like High Life.
Really?
Yeah.
In college, true story, we only played beer pong with High Life because it was like you could buy a 24 pack, 30 pack, right?
For like $15 bucks. Like
stupid cheap prices, bro. Hell yeah.
And it was a good beer for.
And back then we played real beer pong, where like the cups actually had beer in them, not like this new bullshit where they put water in it or some shit.
Gen Z, dude.
Gen Z, man, bunch of pussies. All right, man. Transgenders, hit me with it, bro. Give me your spiel.
Well, it goes back to, again, science, morality, the law, and we as a society get to dictate what is acceptable from a medical practice perspective. These doctors, and doctors don't get to do whatever they want. Doctors are subject to medical law, federal, state, and even local. You know, I don't know any municipal laws that are really different, but you can pass laws. I mean, for instance, Valley Baptist is a church-based, originally Baptist hospital. That's why the name is there. That's how it was started, versus other maybe corporate type of entities that spread and have different value systems or religious backgrounds. So that being said, obviously from a sports perspective, it's scientific, going back to the chromosomes, that if you're a male, you have a different biology, you have a different hormone structure, and physicality. As a former athlete, and as a male, that testosterone biology of men have a significant advantage when it comes to competition. So going to transgender athletes and being able to compete in those sports, it is not fair. And if we just use science and look at the chromosomes from conception, you will see that there should be a separation. Now we have the technology to do that. And there should be a separation, whether you're a swimmer or a boxer or a tennis player, in especially here's the one example I'll leave you. It's always a man competing in women's sports. Show me any sport where the transgender woman beat a biological male. It doesn't happen.
Every transgender woman is usually overweight. No,
they have the hot dog eating competition.
That's probably true, but I don't know.
Nathan's hot dogs. Come on, they could try that.
I mean, just out of curiosity, did anybody disagree with what he said?
Got an audience now. All right, yeah.
That's the only thing we're gonna agree on.
Right? Yeah, right. Like, I mean,
yes.
I mean,
yes.
It doesn't make any sense if you go against it.
Right. I mean, this isn't really an issue, I don't think. Right? Like there's a few.
So why is Gavin Newsom and Nancy? Why does Nancy Pelosi want to chop off the chiles of little children?
You actually believe that?
She said it on camera.
She said, I, Nancy Pelosi,
right?
want to chop off the dicks of little children. She said that?
She said we need to protect these children's rights to make the decisions in transgender that is both, in her Nancy Pelosi way, that benefits them and their family. She said it just happened like last week. But basically she said she wants to chop off the chile.
No, that's how you fucking crazy ass. That's how your fucking crazy ass interprets it, bro.
That's what she said. I'm just translating for you.
What she's saying is like, look, some of these doctors kind of know more than you, and we should leave that decision to those kids and their parents.
But most importantly, no. You see, that's why I think the law is the children. If you want an adult,
wait. But what you're saying is that. Like that, I think that's really your view of a lot of Democrats, is that they just want to fucking chop off kids' dicks.
No, I don't think that.
And that when like a lot of these kids go to school, I mean, Trump has said it, bro. Like they're giving out transgender surgeries in class. It's like, bro, like, do you really think that's what's going on? Like,
I think there were
very, very confused.
There were some schools issuing hormone therapy medication, which from a biological perspective, diminishing the amount of testosterone or estrogen in your system is altering your biology and anatomy.
But correct me if I'm wrong. Like
the gonads.
Like hormone therapy is used for a lot of different reasons, right?
Fair enough, but a school should not be issuing it to children, especially without parents' consent. I think in California somewhere they had counselors.
I bet if I check
even birth control,
I bet if I check
hormone therapy,
Gregory, I bet if I check that, it's not true. That's like some shit you heard on like cat turd posted or something. Some stupid. What you're saying is that schools are prescribing, like, not over the counter drugs to students.
I think there were some laws where they were helping them do that. Yeah, taking hormones essentially.
if we can get a fact check on that. I mean, it could be true.
Yeah, sure, please,
I
yeah.
mean, some cities and districts are fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely no way, because even us as girls that go to see our OBGYN for stuff like that, because we have hormonal imbalances, it's even hard for them to prescribe it to us. So you're really gonna tell me that they're prescribing it at the school when we, like, sometimes our doctors are.
Honestly, it may not have been a prescription. Like it may have been illegal what they were doing, but there's some radical individuals in the system, is what I'm getting at, that would facilitate things like this.
Right, but then you can't make an entire case against Democrats and say, like, yeah, that's what you guys are for.
Well, but I will make the case saying that it was probably a Democrat doing it.
I mean, there's dipshits in Texas, radicals that want to do away with fucking Martin Luther King, and fucking, like.
Fair enough.
I mean, there's dipshits to go on both sides,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so, like, look, here's the thing about this issue about transgenders. Like, I feel like we agree on a lot. Like, no, I don't want fucking transgender boxers, dudes, kicking the shit out of chicks. Like, no one's debating that, right? Like,
Right.
I think the debate is where like we draw that. Okay, so do you think transgender people are real?
Well, of course they're real.
No, but so you think it's a real thing?
Like
transgenderism, like gender dysphoria.
So you're saying like
It's a
they're
choice.
born like that.
It's a
Is
choice.
that what you're asking?
Oh,
Yeah,
if they're-
or do you think,
okay,
they
the
just want to
dysphoria.
chop off their dicks one day?
I think there are people that have mental problems like that. Like for sure there's a dysphoria associated with a clinical diagnosis.
So
where you have a problem. And again, you shouldn't. There's also a clinical diagnosis of people that want to chop off their own arm. Like it's a known disease.
So at the very least, the baseline, we agree that there's people that are afflicted with things that they have no control over.
Sure.
Okay. So let's start there. Kids. That includes kids, right?
Yeah, to an extent.
Right. What should we do as a society when 8-year-old Timmy thinks he's Tammy and wants to try to live a normal life? Like, what do we do about that? Because all I hear from conservatives are, ranging from like, that kid is, I don't know. They
Confused.
They always demonize these. They always demonize these kids. I think that's wrong. Like, my view on transgenderism is simple. Look, if your kid grows up and he's facing issues like transgenderism, my kid shouldn't think that he has the right to bully your son or your daughter.
Sure.
Right? And vice
I
versa.
agree to that.
That's just my basic rule on transgenderism, right? But then we're still, dealt with this problem. Okay, so then how do we as a society accommodate them, whether it comes to sports? If we agree that there's a problem, like, how do we as a society accommodate people like that?
Yeah.
I mean, what are your
I have a couple ideas. Like, it's pretty simple from the sports perspective. First of all, university interscholastic league rules are state-based. So going back to federalism, Texas gets to decide how they want to apply UIL rules for sports and schools and things like that. So every state can decide. Really, that's a beautiful thing in a freedom aspect. Secondly, if you wanted to create an opportunity for this very small number of kids who probably don't play sports to begin with,
tiny
like minuscule, then the easiest solution was you create a third division, which people are going to say, like, okay, now you're isolating them, but they've already isolated themselves if they're making the decision to essentially transfer away from their biological chromosomal map. And so, people have said it before, if there's enough trans athletes that want to be involved in sports, they should have a trans division. But if you're a male, you need to be a male competing in it. If you're a female, you need to be a female competing it down to your chromosomes, your DNA. And then another category for those if they want to accommodate. Now, I think it's real simple to just say no, really, because sports is based off of science. I mean, seriously, think about the amount of science that goes into sports, from the velocity of a golf ball being shot to the trajectory of a football being thrown to the surgery on the elbows of pitchers, from the name of the player who invented it, who had that after 10,000 pitches, they have to get that surgery on the pitcher's elbow. Like,
as a pitcher, I had that surgery.
The science that goes behind sports to not qualify at looking at your literal DNA and biological makeup and establish the rules and regulations associated with that is like baffling if we were to not actually do that, in my opinion, which is why I think we should only have a male and female division, really.
No, I don't think we disagree on a lot here. The only thing we might disagree on is the extent to which it's important in our society.
And I honestly, though, RC3, I'm going to go back. I'm going to have to blame Democrats on this one, and Obama specifically, because he is the one who created these tribalistic, groups and elevated them to national platforms, and it started with gay marriage. And people, with gay marriage, they're like, and don't get me, if you love someone and you're gay, go ahead. I don't care. I don't need to be my business. I hate that I have to see it on. I hate that my 5-year-old kid has to see a commercial about HIV/AIDS with 2 black dudes kissing. Sure, it's everywhere now.
You have to say black dudes.
But yeah, well, that's what the commercial was. I think they're black.
These conservatives are all the same. Man.
Yeah. Trust me, they have the Latin ones.
There's that white part of you talking.
Yeah. So, but seriously, I do blame him for elevating these problems to a national level. Well, where, as you stated, there have always been trans kids. There have been people with gender dysphoria, people that have problems and issues that have been a medical diagnosis. But now to create the isolation of a group that should be, lifted and recognized, I don't agree with that. And he did that during that time.
Look, here's the way I handle it. I got 2 boys, obviously, and I want them to lead normal lives, right?
Yeah.
And I tell them, like, look, there's kids out there that are going to be different, right? There's gay people, there's transgender people, there's people that are going to look different than you. It is what it is, right? I don't believe that if my boys see 2 black dudes in an AIDS commercial on TV, they're going to suddenly want to become gay. That's not the way that shit works, right?
For sure.
Like there's just this like knee-jerk reaction to visceral reaction to like as soon as you see like something that isn't the norm.
Well, that's exactly right, though,
try to make it seem like it's gonna.
Because parents though have that right to control the norm for their child.
I mean, in their house they do. Yeah.
You want to be a Mormon and go live on a Mormon compound and the ATF raids you and it burns down one day and everyone dies. You can do that if you want. This is America. But when you're just like watching a Disney show and 2 black gay dudes for HIV commercial comes up during the thing,
or 2 white dudes,
or 2 white or Chinese, or how many Chinese gay dudes do you see?
I mean,
none is the answer. Like you don't see it. They're out there.
Are you saying that there's no gay Chinese dudes?
I'm saying they don't put them on commercials on TV is what I'm saying. But
why do you think that is?
Because they're not a statistically relevant
population. Because they have tiny wee-wees? Is that what you're saying?
No. But what I'm saying is that they're very subjective on what they choose on the audience they want to approach. And I'm just getting to the, like, as parents, we should be able to control what our children see. And when stuff like that happens unexpectedly, it's a little upsetting where you would have liked to have a conversation with a child before they had to witness and ask, well, like, what's going on there or something like that. And
so more Sydney Sweeney and less of the black dudes.
For my sons, yes. I hope for your sons too.
I mean, I don't mind. I wouldn't mind some more Sydney Sweeney.
When my son saw Sydney Sweeney, I was like, there you go, son. That's right. Attaboy. Attaboy. You'd be so lucky. You'd be so lucky in the future.
Until you start seeing the socks thrown all over the room.
Oh, no.
All right, man. At that point is where we're going to end it. Gregory, appreciate you coming by,
yes,
brother.
sir. It was a good time.
Hey,
Thank you.
If you can handle us, you could handle Washington.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And y'all have any last questions for Gregory?
I'm curious on how he feels about the whole 10 Commandments in his class.
Well, he's for it.
You know, I do think it's a good thing. Do I think it needs to be mandated? I don't. And
Good for you, Gregory.
And again, it's one of those things though where like people in power have the opportunity to make a decision. I do believe the heart behind it is a good thing. They want kids to see the 10 Commandments, the morality aspect of where our laws and government comes from, because maybe some kids have never seen them. Maybe they've never read them. You know, again, though, I would rather it be voluntary than actually like instituted to each classroom. But that just goes to show you, though, that the will of Texas's people are conservative and promoting religious conservative values,
or at least the will of the crazy batch of fucking conservatives we have running the state.
They're right now. And
Listen,
so,
I will say this that might be of benefit to conservatives is if you want to show the love of Christ, try doing more instead of just virtue signaling more. Like, try actually like funding summer school lunches.
Or versus
Or
the Bible.
you're right. Try try to like do maybe more acts of kindness and of good instead of just like meaningless,
Or following the Ten Commandments.
virtue signaling.
following the Ten Commandments, yes.
I mean, that's really
my second question to that is, if you're not necessarily like against it, like not basically saying it should be forced or whatever, so you're saying you're okay with it, shouldn't every other religion be considered?
Well, and actually, that's one of the beautiful things about this rule that a lot of people don't know about. But the Ten Commandments are actually found in the Jewish Bible, the Quran, and the English Bible. So it does encompass the three majority religions of the world in one set from the Abrahamic religions of those three.
But there isn't just Jews and Muslims in Texas. You got Indians.
Fair enough.
People.
They have too many gods, though. It's hard to keep up with that.
Well, I mean, who are we to judge?
I am a Christian, and I believe that they have too many gods.
See those gentlemen back there?
Yeah.
Many of those guys were deists, and they would disagree with you 100%. Claudius, you got something to say?
There's also schools. There's Christian schools. So I mean, if you agree with wanting to have the Ten Commandments in school, then put your child in a Christian school or a Catholic school or not.
Actually,
and now that they got that voucher program that passed, what's stopping you guys?
Actually, public school is founded upon religious grounds in the historical 1500s. So what ended up happening?
Whoa, the historical what?
Yeah, the 15. So during the Protestant Reformation, only people could go to Catholic school. Only the well families that had the money, that had the prestige. Children didn't go to school; they would go to work at those points in time.
My man,
And
you're talking in a time before the Constitution.
Well, but I'm talking about the religious aspect of it. Like this is even pre-United States. We have that history. There's history, a lot of it before the United States. But I'll come back to you. So in the early 1500s, during the Protestant Reformation, the Protestants breaking away from the Catholic Church. That was actually part of Martin Luther's theses in stating that school should not be for only Catholic children. It should be for the public. And that actually created the public schools during that time, is saying that, no, just because you're rich and Catholic, you shouldn't be the only educated people. And so the public school system is actually a freedom of religion idea, which I think circles back all the way to the Ten Commandments and like showing that in the classroom.
But you don't think that
Gotcha.
only them wanting to display or enforce the Ten Commandments in classroom, you don't think that's isolating every other religion? You don't think that's separation?
By virtue, it is, right?
It is, and I'll allow it.
Like with that being done and no other religion being considered, like you're creating so much separation. I mean, we're already there's already a lot of separation going on.
Sure.
They're just making it worse. Shouldn't we be trying to bring it back together?
But look, here's and I'm going to take a victory lap here because a couple of weeks ago I had a guest on. I told him it's going to get struck down by the courts anyway. A couple of days ago, it got struck down by the Texas court. So, I mean, we're right. It's unconstitutional. Like, our founders were very clear on why the state should not be pushing any kind of religion. Separation of church and state. And we got Thomas motherfucking Jefferson to thank for that. Thank you, sir. Claudius, you had something you wanted to say?
Just before we sign off, I was going to talk about insurance companies. Insurance companies like to make a lot of money off of anything. They'll insure anything, but they're not insuring fertilized eggs because they don't consider clumps of cells to be live. So they're not.
Oh, that's true.
Before we sign off.
Get it now.
So, just like, I mean, another argument for that was like, is also climate change, right? A lot of Republicans say, you gotta follow the money, right? You know, what's the money saying? And a lot of insurance companies are not insuring oceanfront property. And I mean, it's not science, but it speaks to what the people with the money on what they think and what they're saying.
Hey, the people with the money are supporting Mata Flores and Eric Flores right now, and so I ain't gonna agree with them.
Well, I mean, that's just because because they think she can win.
And 2 times already, what's happened?
I mean, listen, I wouldn't throw my lot in with those guys, but what are you gonna do, man? All right, Gregory. Hey, it was a pleasure, brother.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming by.
Yeah.
All right, guys. We'll see you. We'll see you next week. Adios.
The achievement.